Chapter 529. Since the hot pot banquet at the old mansion, there was one more patient in the family. Even Fu Yingxiang, who had been eager to go back to Macau for the Spring Festival, also stayed in the hospital. That night, they were sent to the hospital closest to the old house. Later, someone suggested that it was better to let them live together since they had to travel between the two places to visit the patients. Ling Han transferred Ling Zhan and also sent him to Shihe Hospital. The VIP inpatient departments were all in the same building, but they were on different floors in different departments. Yi Huanyan was busy with the interviews and publicity after the movie was released, and Ling Han was also busy with the acquisition of the pleasure group. Wan Yi was afraid that neither of them had time to take care of the child, so she asked Gu Xinian to go back to the old mansion and take Naneo to the apartment in the city center to stay with Gu Hang every day. Chen Yin had been busy following Gu Qi to do road shows in cinemas all over the country, so she didn't come back from Shanghai. Now, there were only Yi Huanyan, Ling Han, and Ling Li left in the old mansion, so it suddenly became quiet. This morning, Ling Li was squatting in the corridor brushing her teeth. She was wrapped in Ling Zhan's black down jacket, which looked like a sack on her, as if the wind could blow her away. Achoo! While brushing her teeth, she suddenly sneezed and spat out toothpaste foam all over the floor. Yi Huanyan was putting on makeup in front of the mirror and was about to go out when she heard the sound outside. She opened the window and took a look. Ling Li was squatting in the opposite corridor and sniffing. She frowned and raised her voice. Ling Li, what are you thinking about? It's cold outside. Why do you have to squat in the corridor to brush your teeth? Do you have to catch a cold to suffer? On the other side, Ling Li sniffed and said vaguely with an indifferent expression. Why am I cold? You old people feel cold. Yi Huanyan was speechless. Fine, fine, fine. You have the ability. Continue. Continue what? I'm bored to death. She squatted in front of him carelessly, ignoring the toothpaste foam in her mouth as she sighed faintly. It's going to be the new year in 2 days. Look at our courtyard. Does it look like the new year? 2 days ago, my brother was here to bicker with me. Now, my brother can't wait to spend the new year in the hospital. Yi Huanyan laughed. Why? Are you bored? Aren't you bored? Ling Li glanced at her. I'm not bored. I have a lot of work to do at the company. Ling Li suddenly fell silent. He seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes lit up as he raised his head. I'll go to the company with you today. Why? Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback and frowned. The last time I took you to my company, didn't you say you wanted to jump out of the car? What are you doing? You want to take revenge and burn down my company? I have something to do. Ling Li stood up and ran to Yi Huanyan's windowsill in a few steps with her long legs. She leaned on the windowsill with an excited expression. There's a guru near your company who plays games with me very well. Last time, Ling Li was bored in Yi Huanyan's apartment. After 2 hours of running around the company, Gu Qi couldn't stand it anymore. He was afraid that she would cause trouble, so he agreed to her request and got her a high-end computer for her to play games on. The game she was playing recently was an online game. If players didn't add each other as friends, then the other player could only be the person who was closest to them. After dying 3 times at the hands of the same person, she took the initiative to express goodwill and added him as a friend, but was rejected by him. She had always been unwilling to accept this matter. Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her. Are you kidding me? That's the CBD. In the office building, everyone from the CEO to the cleaners are so busy that their feet don't touch the floor. Why would anyone play games with you? What's the point of lying to you? Yi Huanyan, are you going to take me or not? Yi Huanyan was helpless when she was so self-righteous when asking for help. Is this the attitude of a beggar? Are you going to take me or not? What if I'm not going to take you? Then I'll take a taxi myself. I'll get reimbursed by your finance department. Hey! It's settled then. I'm going back to change. Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. She looked at the figure in the distance in disbelief. After a while, she gritted her teeth and shouted, Hurry up and change. I'll wait for you for 10 minutes. The figure in black immediately jumped up and cheered as he entered the house. 5 minutes is enough. Yi Huanyan looked at Ling Li's back and sighed. Why are you sighing? Ling Han's voice suddenly came from behind her. While she was talking to Ling Li, Ling Han had been sitting on the sofa in the house and reading the newspaper. He smiled faintly at the conversation between his sister-in-law and sister-in-law from time to time. He didn't interrupt. Only when Yi Huanyan sighed did he close the newspaper and look up at her. Yi Huanyan was stunned by his question and hesitated for a few seconds. I just think that Ling Li's temper is like a thorn in the side. I'm afraid he'll be at a disadvantage in the future. Ling Li had many children in the family. Unlike Ling Zhan, who was the first to be born and enjoyed all the novelty and love of her parents, Ling Li wasn't like the little bean who was the youngest in the family and grew up in the palm of her parents' and siblings' hands. Every 2 years after she was born, Ling Shui was added to the family. Before she could enjoy the special treatment of being a child, she had become an elder sister who had to give in to her younger sister. She was still a child. Although she didn't show it in front of her family, she was more and more independent outside. Over the years, she had a strong personality because of the environment she grew up in. Actually, I always felt that Ling Li was always baring her fangs and brandishing her claws to others. Actually, it's just because she can't be like this at home. She's actually quite tolerant to her family. Yi Huanyan closed the window. She was afraid that Ling Li would hear her, so she deliberately lowered her voice. It's also quite frustrating. Ling Han looked at her with a doting expression. You think too much for others. Yen Yen, that girl, you should let her hit the wall. Yi Huanyan smiled and raised her eyebrows. You're just saying it casually. If she really hit the wall, won't you get someone to tear it down? Everyone in the Ling family was very protective of their food. When something happened to their family, they would always side with the family regardless of who was right or wrong. There was a hurried shout from the courtyard. Hey, are you done? Yi Huanyan, I'm already done tidying up. Why are you so slow? Yi Huanyan quickly got up and responded. I'm here. Don't rush me. I'm waiting for you. Just as she was about to leave, she was stopped by Ling Han, who got up. Yen Yen, you haven't put on your coat. She turned around and saw the wine-red woolen coat that was just draped on the chair unfold in his hands. His slender fingers held the collar of both sides, indicating that she should reach out. Her chest suddenly thumped. The long-lost throbbing returned vividly when he helped her put on her coat. He stood in front of her and wrapped his hands around her neck. He was helping her to tidy up the back of her collar. When he lowered his head, his chin rubbed against the top of her head. Yi Huanyan could almost imagine that her hair was brushing past his chin. Gulp! She swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She didn't expect that it would sound so loud in the quiet environment. She couldn't explain it. Chapter 530. When she looked up, Ling Han was smiling affectionately. Yi Huanyan's face tensed up and she pretended to be annoyed. What are you laughing at? Ling Han stared at her intently and lowered his head. His thin lips brushed past her ear gently. I'm laughing. With a wife like this, what more can a husband ask for? Yi Huanyan's pale face immediately turned red, all the way to her ears. She stared at his side profile in a daze. They were so close that her eyes lost focus. Caught off guard, their ears rubbed against each other. When he gently kissed her earlobe, that soft and moist touch made her shudder involuntarily. Hey, Yi Huanyan, are you leaving or not? I'm coming in. A clap of thunder exploded outside the door, breaking the rare flirting in the room after so many busy days. Yi Huanyan's body stiffened and she hurriedly pushed someone away. The person staggered from the push and his back hit the wall. He groaned, and the warmth disappeared without a trace in an instant. There was the sound of the door opening. What are you two doing? Ling Li stood at the door with a suspicious look on her face. Nothing. Let's go. Yi Huanyan hurriedly adjusted her jacket. Let's go. It's almost too late. Aren't you anxious? With that said, she pushed Ling Li out of the room, afraid that she would notice something. The conversation between the two could be heard in the courtyard. Yi Huanyan, why are you blushing? What were you two doing in the room just now? What blushing? We're not blushing. Are you exposing yourself? I'm not a child, but can't you two restrain yourselves a little? It's so early in the morning. Hey, I think it's good to talk about men in the morning. That's enough. Their voices gradually faded away. A certain person stood in front of the window, his back still aching from hitting the wall. He looked at the two figures that were gradually disappearing and sighed faintly. His tightly knitted brows seemed to be expressing his late displeasure. Ling Li, this girl, was indeed very annoying. Haiyan Media. Gu Qi had just returned from a business trip and handed over a batch of movie viewing materials to Yi Huanyan's office. This is the information we collected from Hainan. Okay. Yi Huanyan flipped through it carefully. Thank you for your hard work. Did you encounter any problems on this business trip? No problem. I also took a look at a few places in Hainan and took some photos. I think it's very suitable for a movie shooting location. After the photos are sorted and the follow-up work for Remaining Life is completed, you can come to the reference room to take a look. Yi Huanyan also had a script with an outline in her hands. She had shown it to Gu Qi before, and Gu Qi was very interested in it. Every time he went on a business trip, he would pay attention to the places where he went to see if the scenes were suitable for filming. There was a storage room in the office. Previously, when Yi Huanyan was not at the company, Gu Qi had it turned into a reference room when she came back. It was specifically used to display information related to Yi Huanyan's movie scripts. Gu Qi was very meticulous. Only Yi Huanyan could not think of something. There was nothing he could not do. Okay. Yi Huanyan nodded and did not say any more pleasantries. Oh yeah, Ling Li is here. Yi Huanyan was just about to say that he would help her find a computer when she suddenly realized that Ling Li was not in the office. She frowned and looked around. Where is she? Miss Ting Rui. Gu Qi looked down at his wrist. 5 minutes later is the midterm summary meeting of the movie. There will be a report on the Venice Film Festival before the new year. You have to attend the festival in person, so are you free to attend the meeting? Yi Huanyan snapped back to reality and put the matter of Ling Li aside for the time being. She nodded. Okay, I'll pack up and go directly to the conference room. You can inform the staff to start the meeting. The Venice Film Festival was known as the Lovers' Film Festival. Every year, romantic films competed for the film awards. Gu Qi had submitted the film for the judging panel when the editing of Remaining Life was completed. He had just received the nomination notice 3 days ago, and the invitation letter was still on the way. After Yi Huanyan went to the conference room, Ling Li came out of the bathroom. He waved the water in his hand and walked around the office. He randomly grabbed a secretary who had come to deliver something and asked, "Where is Yi Huanyan?" The secretary opened her eyes wide and looked hesitant. Isn't Mr. Gu's surname Gu? Yes, it's your Mr. Gu. Where is he? The door of the conference room is closed and the blinds are drawn. Mr. Gu should be having a meeting inside. How long will it take? Ling Li frowned. I don't know. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it's very quick. A meeting could be a big or small matter, but it was not something that outsiders could casually interfere with. No matter how immature Ling Li was, he knew that he had to save some face for Yi Huanyan in front of others, so he was in a dilemma. If he didn't find Yi Huanyan, who would find a computer for her to play games on? The secretary's arm was numb from Ling Li's grip, so she whispered, "Miss Ling, can you let go of me?" Ling Li acted as if he didn't hear her and continued to ask her, "Hey, where is the computer with the highest specs in your office?" The secretary was dizzy from the continuous questions. She blinked her eyes blankly and shook her head. I don't know. How is that possible? You have a technical department, right? It's a place for programmers. Just as he was grabbing the secretary and asking her, Gu Qi's voice came from the direction of the secretary's office. Secretary Han. The secretary who was grabbed by Ling Li quickly turned around and responded, "Assistant Gu, I'm in the office. I asked you to get the documents, but you didn't come out for a long time. What's wrong with you? Gu Qi followed the sound and stood at the door. He saw Secretary Han being grabbed by Ling Li like a chicken. Ling Li inherited his height from his parents. With his long legs of 1.75 meters, he lifted Secretary Han, who was 1.58 meters tall, as easily as an Antarctic penguin lifting a chick. What are you doing? He scolded. Gu Qi was a member of the Gu family. Other than being respectful to the Gu family, he had always been polite to others. Because of Ling Han, he had always been biased against the people in the Ling family's old mansion, especially this Ling Li. In his eyes, she was a young lady who didn't know how to do anything other than throw a tantrum. Ling Li was stunned by her shout and subconsciously grabbed Secretary Han's wrist. Ah! The weak Secretary Han screamed and her face turned pale. Hug. Before she could say the word apologize, a tall figure had already blocked her line of sight. He pulled Secretary Han behind him and stared at her condescendingly. You're the second daughter of the Ling family, right? This isn't the first time we've met. Not for President Gu's sake, but for your brother's sake, shouldn't you control your temper here? Ling Li had never been lectured like this since she was young. Her expression changed immediately. Hey, what do you mean? Gu Qi's face darkened. He looked like an iceberg, and his tone was cold. This is not the pleasure group, nor the Ling family's old mansion. Not everyone can throw a tantrum here. The employees of Haiyan Media are not your servants, so you shouldn't hit them. Chapter 531. I touched. Ling Li pointed at his nose and stared at the man's face in front of him in disbelief. He was furious. Which eye of yours saw me touching her? Gu Qi's expression did not change. Both of my eyes saw it. F***ck, tell me. Ling Li glanced at Secretary Han, who was hiding behind Gu Qi. Tell me, what did I ask you to do just now? Secretary Han was slightly stunned. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Miss Ling just asked me to help her find a computer. I don't know where to find one. Did you hear that? Ling Li glared at him. I just asked her to help me find a computer. What's the problem? Secretary Han, you go ahead and do your work. There's nothing for you to do here. Gu Qi glanced at Secretary Han. Hey, what are you doing? She's a witness. If you have the ability, get her to confront Yi Huanyan with me. Miss Ling, only Gu Qi and Ling Li were left in the office. Gu Qi's voice was exceptionally cold. He had no intention of retreating, nor did he have any intention of explaining the misunderstanding just now. What? I'll emphasize again. This is Haiyan Media. It's President Gu's company, not yours. Why should we help you prepare a computer just because you want one? Everyone here has their own duties. Whether it's Secretary Han, who you just saw, or me, who is standing in front of you now, we all have our own duties. You. But this job doesn't include serving you. Ling Li felt a stifling sensation in his chest. If it were any other time, he would have exploded long ago. However, at this moment, he could not say a single word. He could only glare at Gu Qi. If there's nothing else, I hope Miss Ling can go upstairs and stay in the apartment. Don't affect our work. After saying this, Gu Qi walked toward the desk, tidied up the documents on the table, and neatly arranged them on the table. Then, he held them in his hands and walked toward the door. Ling Li stood there for a while and finally recovered from the first reprimand in his life. Just as Gu Qi was about to walk out of the door, he suddenly burst out with an angry roar. Stop right there. Gu Qi's body froze. He put one hand on the door handle and hesitated for only a second before pressing the handle and preparing to leave. I said, stop. The sound of hurried footsteps came from behind. Then, Gu Qi's arm tilted, and the documents in his hand fell to the ground. Ling Li had been practicing judo since she was a child, so her strength was skillful. Gu Qi was not prepared for this pull, so he was actually pulled by her and staggered 2 steps. Are you crazy? Since when did you have the right to tell Yi Huanyan what to do with me? To put it simply, you're just a small assistant at Haiyan Media following Yi Huanyan around. To put it simply, you're just a dog of the Gu family. Ling Li had a fiery temper. When she was angry, she could say anything. Although it was not her intention, what was done could not be undone. By the time she realized that the last sentence had gone too far, it was already over. Gu Qi's face immediately sank to the bottom, and he grabbed her wrist with a backhand grip. You! What are you doing? Don't touch me. Let go of me. Gu Qi's face was ashen. He held onto Ling Li's wrist tightly. Compared to the so-called judo she had learned from training her body since she was a child, the three Gu siblings had systematically learned real combat skills. Once they fought, life and death would be decided in an instant. There was no such thing as stopping when it came to a fight. Therefore, Ling Li could feel the pain in her wrist. The pain of her bones being crushed made her face pale. She clenched her teeth and could not stop the bean-sized beads of sweat from falling from her forehead. Gu Qi's face suddenly enlarged in front of her eyes. The cold scent of a man flooded her nose. Ling Li panicked. What are you doing? His face suddenly missed her line of sight as he leaned over to her ear. His voice was cold, like a warning from an evil spirit from hell, unusually cold. Don't worry. I have no interest in a flat body like yours. For Mr. Gu's sake, I just want to warn you. Trouble comes from a loose tongue. If I want to do something, your brain won't be able to stop me. Ling Li's face instantly changed. By the time she reacted, Gu Qi had already flung her hand away. She staggered and fell onto the carpet. You! What did you think I would do to you? Gu Qi laughed coldly. He squatted down and picked up the documents on the floor one by one. Then he walked out without looking back. Ling Li fell onto the carpet. For a long time, she looked like she was gnashing her teeth. She covered her wrist with one hand. It was so painful that she could not speak. It was the first time she had been humiliated like this in her life. And it was from someone she did not even care about. Gu Qi had just left the office and was about to go to the meeting room. When he passed by the secretary's office, the intern secretary stood up from her seat. She held the phone in her hand and shouted through the glass window. Assistant Gu, there's a call from the front desk. Someone is looking for you. Gu Qi frowned. She turned around and asked, Did you say who it is? No. Gu Qi nodded. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly thought of something and asked, Ask the person at the front desk what he looks like. Hey, okay. The intern secretary hurriedly asked. After a while, she raised her head and said, He said it's a man. He's about 1.8 meters tall and looks quite delicate. He's wearing black-rimmed glasses and is a little dull. He's sitting in the lounge and waiting for you. Gu Qi understood. After a few seconds of silence, she said, Tell the front desk that I'll be there right away. The intern secretary nodded and sat down to pass the message to the front desk. When she raised her head, she saw Gu Qi walking in the direction of the meeting room. At the front desk of Haiyan Media, Xiao Chen hung up the phone. Sir, Assistant Gu said that she'll be down in a while. Do you want to wait for a while? Xiao Chen was new at the front desk. She did not know the man in front of her. If it were anyone else, she would not have made the call to help her ask. Hearing this, Song Xiaobo's eyes lit up with joy. He adjusted his glasses. Okay, then I'll wait there. As he spoke, he carried his backpack and walked to the lounge with familiarity. The front desk was slightly stunned. Coincidentally, the head waiter came over to adjust the schedule before the Chinese New Year. When he saw her in a daze, he followed her gaze to the lounge. When he saw Song Xiaobo, he looked as if he was used to it and sneered. That kid is here again? Little Chen revealed a somewhat surprised expression. Manager, do you know that gentleman? Don't you know him? I forgot to tell you. He's a regular in the lobby. Every time he comes, he looks for Assistant Gu. Assistant Gu is very busy, so there's no need to inform him. Just ask him to wait in the lobby. He's... Sigh. Who knows? Who doesn't have a special fetish these days? It's a common occurrence. Xiao Chen was stunned for a few seconds. She suddenly reacted and covered her mouth. Manager, are you saying that Assistant Gu and him are? Keep your voice down. On the other side, Song Xiaobo, who was unaware of the love scandal that the people in Haiyan Media's lobby department had created, went to the lounge. He unscrewed the thermos flask that he carried with him and poured himself a glass of water. He sat down on the sofa and opened the laptop on the coffee table. He opened the game interface and logged in. Chapter 532. Umbo's Villa in the Western Suburbs. Wan Siyuan had been staying at home for a few days. The wound on his face was almost healed, but he never mentioned the shares. At lunchtime, Zhou Lan had already prepared the table. Umbo came downstairs, wearing a suit and leather shoes. He looked like he was going out for business. I have a lunch appointment at noon, so I won't be eating at home. Wan Siyuan sat on the sofa and looked up to ask, why so sudden? It's not sudden. It's about the acquisition. Su Nianhua is usually very busy. He is also working for others, so it's not a big deal for me to cooperate with him a little. If Su Nianhua was in a hurry to talk business with him, Umbo would not be so happy. He was quite satisfied with the previous price negotiation, and the conditions in all aspects were not bad, so he had been in a good mood for the past 2 days. Even when Hong Rizhang of Rongfa Media called him a few times, he refused to answer. Pleasure was sold to an outsider who had nothing to do with Lanjiang City. He could get a year-end bonus justifiably. It was better than selling to a stingy Hong Rizhang. Watching Umbo go out, the sound of the car engine disappeared from the courtyard. Wan Siyuan closed the newspaper and stared thoughtfully in the direction of the study on the second floor. Umbo's chapters were usually kept in the study. Time to eat, Siyuan. Zhou Lan's voice made Wan Siyuan come back to his senses. At this time, Zhou Lan was wearing a beige dress. Her long hair was tied up on the top of her head, and a few strands of hair hung loosely around her ears. She had a lazy temperament, but she was more charming. Wan Siyuan suddenly had a feeling of restlessness. During the meal, Zhou Lan glanced at the servants from the corner of her eyes. You all go down first. I'll clean up after the meal. She and Wan Siyuan were left in the dining room. Zhou Lan served a bowl of soup to Wan Siyuan. Siyuan, this soup is made from dagu. I added Codonopsis pellucula to boost your energy. You've just recovered, so drink more. Wan Siyuan's hand that was holding the bowl of soup slid from the edge of the bowl to her slender wrist. He seemed to touch her wrist for a moment before retracting his hand and taking the bowl of soup. It smells good. Zhou Lan clenched her fingers as she felt an electric shock coursing through her entire body. After that, they ate in silence. Zhou Lan was absent-minded. Wan Siyuan, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened. After finishing his meal, he stood up and looked at Zhou Lan thoughtfully. I'll go upstairs first. With that, Wan Siyuan headed for the second floor. Zhou Lan held the bowl and felt that she couldn't taste anything. The sound of water splashing came from Wan Siyuan's bedroom on the second floor, and it made her angry. If she didn't understand what he meant, then she would have wasted all her years of observation by the old man's side. Nanny Zhang, clean up the dishes. I'll give you 3 days off. Didn't you always say that you wanted to go back to your hometown to see your son? Go back. The servant, Nanny Zhang, was overjoyed. She cleaned up the dishes and went back to her room to pack. Before she left, Zhou Lan gave her a red packet. You still have to come before the new year. You can't transfer to someone else's house. Yes, of course. Madam is so good to me. After closing the door, Zhou Lan went up to the second floor. She went back to her room first, changed her clothes, sprayed some perfume, and tiptoed out of the room. She went in the direction of the second bedroom. At the entrance of Qingxiu Tea House in the western suburbs of Lanjiang City, a black BMW slowly stopped. The waiter at the door ran over and opened the door to welcome the person who got out of the car. President Wen. This tea house was owned by Umbo. It barely made ends meet every year. In fact, it was just a private place for him to talk business. Some time ago, he had already planned to sell it, but seeing that the acquisition of Pleasure Entertainment had taken a turn for the better, it was not impossible for it to stay in Lanjiang City, so he decided to keep the shop. He had arranged to meet Su Nianhua here. In the private room, the aroma of tea filled the air. Su Nianhua had participated in the remaining Life Roadshow in various parts of the country. When he came back, his flight was delayed. He had just arrived at the airport and was late. Umbo was not in a hurry. The waiter brought him a new batch of tea. He commented a little, and the manager listened respectfully. He noted it down and said that he would improve on it next time. As they were talking, the door of the private room was suddenly pulled open. A waitress in a cheongsam said anxiously, "Sir, you can't go in." Umbo looked up and saw the man who had barged into the room. He looked familiar. After thinking for a while, he remembered that he was Hong Rizhong's assistant. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Wan." He bowed respectfully as a form of greeting. "I have something to show you. It's about Pleasure Entertainment." Umbo looked a little displeased. "Do you know what I was supposed to talk about today? If there were no problems, the contract would be signed today." Hong Rizhong's assistant appeared at this time. It was obvious that he was here to cause trouble. If Su Nianhua arrived at this time and saw that he was in contact with the people from Venture Media, he would not be able to explain himself. The assistant said calmly, "Mr. Wan, CEO Hong said that if you still insist on rejecting the collaboration with Venture Media after seeing this, he will not disturb you in the future." Umbo then noticed that Hong Rizhong's assistant was holding a black folder. He could vaguely see that there was a stack of papers in it. This is all of Su Nianhua's background information. The manager of the tea house understood from Umbo's eyes. He took the folder from the assistant and placed it on the tea table. Umbo flipped open the folder and glanced at it. His expression changed slightly. After flipping through a few pages, his expression changed even more. There were faint signs of him collapsing. This was the effect that the assistant wanted to see. It was also what Hong Rizhong had expected. The assistant said seriously, "Mr. Wan, my husband is in the private room next door. If you are interested, why don't you move?" Umbo closed the folder. His expression was gloomy. Hong Rizhong knew that Umbo was going to meet Su Nianhua here. He also knew that if he did not do something, this collaboration might be completed this afternoon. He was determined to get Pleasure Entertainment, so he would not allow such a thing to happen. Therefore, today was his last chance to stop this contract from being completed. He was putting all his eggs in one basket, but it was almost certain that he would win. In the private room, the smell of sandalwood rose. Behind the double-sided screen, there was a Jiangnan woman playing a tune. Hong Rizhong pinched his fingers and sat on the futon, shaking his head. He looked relaxed and comfortable. With a schwa sound, Umbo opened the door of the private room and walked in. His face was ashen. The folder was slammed on the table. The loud sound did not interrupt the sound of the pipa behind the screen. Umbo's face was gloomy. He growled, "Hong Rizhong, what do you mean by this?" "Nothing. I'm just reminding CEO when not to trust villains so easily." Hong Rizhong's expression did not change, but he was happy in his heart. Right now, the initiative that he had lost for a long time was back in his hands. Chapter 533. Sitting across from each other in the private room, Umbo felt that the futon under him seemed to have grown thorns, and he couldn't sit still. He glanced at the contents of the folder and knew the seriousness of the matter. Hong Rizhong also put in a lot of effort to find a way to get this information. If this information was true, it meant that the deal between him and Su Nianhua had fallen through. "Why are you so sure that I will believe the things you gave me? A few pieces of paper can mess up such a big acquisition." "Hong Rizhong, don't you think it's a little too easy?" Hong Rizhong poured himself a cup of tea with a relaxed expression. "Even if the deal is not done, the benevolence is still there. I'm just reminding you for the sake of our friendship. I'm just afraid that you will be deceived. If you suspect that the contents of the folder are false, just verify it. If there is a lie, I'll be struck by lightning, and my wife and children will die a horrible death." These words were too harsh. Hong Rizhong looked at Umbo's expression and laughed. "Besides, since you are sitting here now, your meaning is very clear. Do you still need me to say more?" Umbo's expression tightened, and his heart trembled, but he pretended to be calm and said in a deep voice, "Even so, I made a deal with Su Nianhua." "So what?" The price he offered was higher than the market value of the appraisal report issued by the asset appraisal firm, and he promised to keep my shares for a long time after the acquisition of Pleasure Group. "Such conditions are much better than what you offered." Hong Rizhong's expression didn't change. "Is that so? But do you think that after the previous incident, Ling Han will tolerate a piece of sand like you?" "What do you mean?" "What I mean is that since the previous news and Su Nianhua's uncle abroad were all pretenses, then the person who bought Pleasure Group in name is him, but the one behind the scenes is probably Ling Han, right?" Umbo frowned fiercely. When the truth was revealed, it was always bloody. You think that reality is like a silver lining, but reality is forcing you into a dead end once again. "So, CEO Wen, at the end of the day, I'm still the most reliable partner. Listen to me. Ling Han spent so much effort to get Pleasure back. This shows how much he values Pleasure. He would rather be cuckolded on the news to set a trap for you. You can imagine how much he hates this uncle of yours for setting him up." Umbo's face alternated between green and white, and it took him a long time to regain his senses. "So you still think that there's no possibility of cooperating with me? At the very least, I can sell it for a decent price, enough for you to gain a foothold in other cities." Hong Rizhong was pressuring him step by step, and Umbo was in a panic. Su Nianhua's uncle's background information and the fake news sources had made him extremely distrustful of Su Nianhua. He didn't have time to think about whether he was related to Ling Han. He was full of thoughts. If this was really a trap set by Ling Han, he would still be a shareholder of Pleasure after signing the contract. At that time, he was afraid that it would be time for retribution. "Okay, according to your previous price, I'm willing to sign the contract." He gritted his teeth and finally relented. He originally wanted to make a big profit and cast a long line to catch a big fish, but he didn't expect venture media to be so rich. They had their own ability to establish a foothold in Lonjiang City. Hong Rizhong wanted to buy Pleasure, and almost no one from other companies dared to compete with him. This made the Pleasure Group, a fat piece of meat, become a priceless existence. Signing the contract is not a problem, but the price. Hong Rizhong smiled and lowered his head to drink his tea. "What do you mean?" Umbo's expression changed. "I want a 10% discount from the previous price. Are you taking advantage of the situation?" "I'm afraid it's a timely help." Umbo's face was darker than the bottom of the pot. He got up, put on his shoes, and was about to leave. Hong Rizhong's meaningful voice came from behind him. "Mr. Wan, I advise you to close the deal at this price while I'm still in a good mood. Otherwise, when you think about this price, I won't be satisfied." Umbo clenched his fingers, and his weathered face was full of anger. "In your dreams." The price that he had negotiated with Hong Rizhong was already far lower than the reference price in the previous evaluation report. Now, he was asking for a 10% discount. He was simply taking advantage of the situation. Although Wen Bo was in a hurry to change Huan Yu to a big backer or a capable manager, he couldn't take this kind of humiliation. With that, he left and got into the BMW that had been waiting for him at the door. On the second floor of the villa in the western suburbs. The evening wind blew across the balcony, blowing the curtains. "Why aren't the windows closed? No wonder it's so cold." A woman's coquettish voice came from the bed. "It's freezing to death." The man on the bed put his arm around her shoulder and lowered his head. "Are you cold? Why do I feel that you're warm and soft? It's not cold at all?" The woman turned around and punched him in the chest. "You're so annoying. What do you hate?" "I hate you." "Did I make you uncomfortable just now?" "You?" Before the woman could refute, her chin was pinched. The man exerted force in his hand. She cried out in surprise, and there was a hint of astonishment in her eyes. She looked up and met his gaze. It was full of lust. The man in front of her was in his early 40s, which was the time when his body was strong. He was slightly plump, but he was just the right amount of wealth. It was very comfortable to lean on his body. Zhou Lan had been with Umbo since she was 10 years old. Umbo was her first man. Now that she thought about it, her first man was such an old man with half his body buried in the ground. She was really unwilling. Comfortable or uncomfortable? When Siyuan asked in her ear. She calculated in her heart and finally understood that life was still in her own hands. All these years, although Umbo had been good to her, he didn't leave her much savings. If one day he died, she would be old, and it would be even more difficult to find a backer. Thinking of this, she pulled out her bare hands from the quilt and wrapped them around Wen Siyuan's neck. Her eyes moved. What do you think? Her soft breasts were buried in his chest. They were as warm and soft as steamed buns that had just come out of the pot. Her skin was so tender that it could be broken by the wind. It could be seen that she had taken good care of herself all these years. She was only in her 20s and was still a young woman. However, her mature charm far exceeded that of women of her age. Wen Siyuan only felt his entire body go numb, and his lower body instantly reacted. He laughed and pinched her waist, then cursed, "Vixen," turned over and pressed her down, and another round of sex. At this time, Wen Siyuan turned over and got out of bed to smoke. Zhou Lan tidied up her clothes on the bed and tied her hair. Old master should be back soon. I'll go change first so that he won't find out anything. Chapter 534. Wen Siyuan smoked a cigarette. Smoke rose in front of his eyes. When he heard this, he turned around and looked at Zhou Lan thoughtfully. I might need you to do me a favor. What favor? What can I do for you? Of course, unless you don't want to. Zhou Lan was slightly stunned and quickly retorted. Of course I'm willing. I'm already yours. Why wouldn't I be willing? Wen Siyuan's eyes deepened. All right then. This matter concerns both of our futures. If you really care about me, remember that what you're doing is related to my life. Zhou Lan's eyes revealed a hint of nervousness. What exactly is it? At this moment, the sound of a car turning off could be heard in the courtyard. The old man's voice came from the direction of the balcony. Where are you? Why are you turned off? Zhou Lan's face stiffened. I'll go down and open the door first. You can just go to sleep. If the old man asks, I'll say that you slept all day after taking the medicine. Wen Siyuan lowered his head and smoked. He nodded very absent-mindedly. Seeing this, Zhou Lan was a little anxious. She snatched the cigarette in his hand and crushed it in the ashtray. She said coquettishly, Don't be anxious. If the old man finds out that you're fine, I'll be finished. What are you afraid of? Wen Siyuan pinched her butt. At most, I'll take you away. Bah! Zhou Lan pushed him away. Her face was unhappy, but her heart was very happy. The two of them were lovey-dovey for a while before she went downstairs to open the door. Why did you take so long to open the door? Where's Auntie Zhong? Umbo's face was dark. Obviously, he was angry outside. When he came back, he didn't have a good expression on his face to Zhou Lan. Zhou Lan calmed down and took out a set of words that she had prepared long ago. Auntie Zhang had some matters to attend to in her hometown. She had applied for leave a long time ago, saying that she had to make a trip back home. I let her leave today. Look, I was cooking at home. The sound of chopping vegetables in the kitchen was loud, so I didn't hear you outside. Umbo glanced in the direction of the kitchen. There were a few cold dishes on the table, and there was also a fragrance in the kitchen, so he did not take it seriously. Where's Siyuan? The cold dishes on the dining table were all prepared by Nanny Zhang before she left. The hot dishes in the kitchen were always covered with a thermal cover to maintain their temperature and color. There was even a knife and half-cut vegetables on the chopping board to make it look like someone was cooking. As long as one didn't walk into the kitchen, one wouldn't be able to see any flaws. Umbo was someone who never entered the kitchen, so it was not difficult to hide from him. Zhou Lan was walking towards the kitchen with her back to him. When she heard Umbo's question, her body stiffened slightly, but she quickly returned to normal. I don't know. I haven't seen him since lunch. I don't know if he's upstairs or gone out. Umbo frowned. His heart was getting more and more stuffy. He had always known that this son of his would not amount to much. Even at this time, he thought that if his son could be half as capable as Ling Han, he would not have to sell off Huan Yu Entertainment. Dinner will be ready soon. Zhou Lan's voice came from the direction of the kitchen. Umbo frowned and stood up from the sofa. I'm not eating. I'm not in the mood. I'm going to sleep. Tell Siyuan to come up early and accompany me after dinner. Zhou Lan replied, Got it. The sound of the door closing came from the direction of the master bedroom on the second floor. Zhou Lan's hanging heart finally relaxed. She stayed in the kitchen for another 10 minutes or so, putting the dishes in the thermal cover on the table one by one. After that, she cleaned up the chopping board. Just as she was about to go to the second floor to call Wen Siyuan, she turned around and fell into an embrace. In a panic, she almost dropped the bowl in her hand. Ouch! She cried out in alarm. Wen Siyuan covered her mouth and swallowed the rest of the words. Don't talk. A few years ago, he had slept with Zhou Lan in the wrong bed for the first time. He drank too much at that time and did not feel anything. After that, there were many women around him, so he forgot about it. This time was different. When Siyuan finally understood why Grandpa Shang kept this woman by his side all these years. Zhou Lan was furious. She pried his hand away and said in a low voice, Sweetheart, are you crazy? If Grandpa Shang sees us, we're both done for. What are you afraid of? Wen Siyuan's large hand rubbed her chest, causing her to pant. Grandpa Shang is taking a shower now. I came down when I heard the sound. Zhou Lan could not bear his movements. She panted heavily. Her voluptuous breasts were pressed against his chest, heaving up and down violently. He pressed her hands against the sink and turned on the tap. Amidst the sound of running water, he lifted her skirt and revealed her round buttocks. The sound of running water covered the papa sounds of their bodies intertwining. The footsteps on the second floor were somewhat dull as he walked down step by step. Cough, cough. Umbo suddenly felt an itch in his throat. He could not help but hold on to the railing and cough twice, startling the two wild mandarin ducks in the kitchen. Zhou Lan's face was pale. Wen Siyuan hurriedly pulled up his pants, turned around, and sat down at the dining table. There was a shelf decorated with vases between the stairs and the dining room kitchen. It was not very clear, so Grandpa Shang did not notice anything. He walked down with his head down. Dad. Wen Siyuan felt a little guilty. He helped him pull out a chair. Please sit. Wan Bo nodded and responded. He raised his eyes to look in the direction of the kitchen. Zhou Lan, don't be busy. Sit down and eat. Zhou Lan, who was in the kitchen, responded with a hoarse voice. Hey, I'm not busy. I'm washing my hands. After a while, Zhou Lan opened the kitchen door and walked out. She pulled out the seat next to Umbo and sat down. Umbo glanced at her. Why are you sweating so much? It's hot in the kitchen. Zhou Lan lowered her head. Umbo's gaze immediately became suspicious. Dad, did the business deal not go well in the afternoon? Wen Siyuan's voice interrupted his doubts in a timely manner. He focused all his attention on the matter in the afternoon again. When this matter was mentioned, he was furious. He snorted coldly. Hong Rizhang, that old bastard. He's taking advantage of the situation. He actually wants to lower the price of pleasure by 10% so that I can sell it to him. Unless I'm crazy. Hong Rizhang? Didn't you say that you were going to find Su Nianhua in the afternoon? Su Nianhua. Umbo's expression became even more unsightly. He spat fiercely. What a heartless whore. That's right. If it weren't for my good luck this time, I'm afraid I would have been fooled by him. I almost died without a burial place. When he said the word heartless whore, Zhou Lan's eyes trembled fiercely. She quickly lowered her head to eat, not daring to look at him. At the same time, Su Nianhua had been glaring at Umbo in the tea house for half an hour. He made 2 phone calls, but no one answered. He didn't dare to make more calls. For the 3rd time, he dialed Yi Huanyan. Umbo and I agreed to meet at the tea house today, but he hasn't come yet. Do you think he knows something? On the other end of the phone, Yi Huanyan was silent for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, "Well, don't worry. I'll see if the people I sent to follow Hong Rizhong found anything." Chapter 535. After hanging up the call with Su Nianhua, Yi Huanyan quickly called the office of the assistant group. During this time, he had sent people to keep an eye on Hong Rizhong. It was impossible for his people not to know what happened today. The person who answered the phone was a newcomer led by Gu Qi. Huanyan didn't say much and said directly, "Find Assistant Gu and ask him to come to my office." Not long after, there was a knock on the office door. Gu Qi asked as soon as he came in, "Is it about Umbo?" "I've already heard about it." Yi Huanyan hurriedly asked, "What happened? Shouldn't he have signed the contract directly after meeting Su Nianhua in the afternoon? Did Hong Rizhong do something?" Now, the only ones competing with the pleasure group were this group of people and venture media, so if someone was making trouble, they knew who it was without thinking. Mr. Su's flight in the afternoon was delayed. Before he went to the clubhouse, my people watched Hong Rizhong in the clubhouse. His assistant entered Umbo's private room. After that, Umbo followed him out and went to Hong Rizhong's private room. I don't know what they talked about for the time being, but what is certain is that because of this conversation, Umbo has doubts about Su Nianhua. This is troublesome. Yi Huanyan furrowed her brows. If they didn't know what happened in the afternoon, they couldn't deal with it at all. "Don't worry," Gu Qi comforted. The people sent to watch the clubhouse said that they saw Hong Rizhong's assistant give a folder to Umbo. Umbo changed his mind to sign the contract with Su Nianhua after reading the contents of the folder, so these problems should be in that document. Where is that document now? The people sent said that they saw Umbo leave with that document in the car. That document should still be in Umbo's hands. Yi Huanyan looked at Gu Qi with a worried expression. "Is there any other way?" "Yes." Gu Qi lowered his voice. "I'll find a way to get that document." "How?" "Steal." When she heard this word coming out of Gu Qi's mouth, Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. "Are you kidding me? I've already called Gu Min will arrive in Lonjiang tomorrow night. I'll leave this matter to her." "Gu Min is coming back?" Yi Huanyan stood up, the surprise in her eyes. Gu Qi nodded. "She has the best innate talent in the villa. Master Lu only accepted her as his disciple." The Master Lu that Gu Qi was talking about was a locksmith who lived in the villa. Before entering the villa, he had been in prison for 20 years for burglary. During that time, he had successfully escaped from prison 9 times and was arrested 8 times. The last time, he walked back on his own accord. Even the prison guards respected him. Master Lu was a strange person. No one knew why he was in and out of prison for 20 years or why he ran back on his own accord. He had a good personal relationship with Gu Heng. They had been friends since they were young. After he was released from prison, it was Gu Heng who personally went to the Los Angeles prison to pick him up and bring him to the villa. When he arrived at the villa, Gu Min was still a little girl who had just learned to walk. For some reason, they hit it off and he taught her some skills. This so-called skill, in addition to the ordinary lockpicking, also included various stealing methods to open safes and deceive people. Even Gu Qi only found out many years later that Master Lu used to be an intelligence officer, an important member who specialized in stealing confidential information from other countries. Yi Huanyan was not too worried about letting Gu Min do this. She just felt that it was a waste of talent. Pleasure Group was just a sesame seed to the Gu family. In the end, if she really had no other choice, she could still ask Gu Sinian to stop the acquisition of venture media in the name of the Gu family. She had a way out, but she was worried that after doing so, Ling Han would feel uncomfortable. After all, she was relying on the Gu family. It would not be good if word got out in the future. By the way, if Gu Min comes back, Xiaobo will be happy to death. Yi Huanyan suddenly thought of this. Is he still waiting for you downstairs these 2 days? At the mention of Song Xiaobo, Gu Qi's face immediately fell. If I could, I would like him to be sent back to where he came from. Gu Qi had lived for 30 years, but he had never seen a man as shameless as Song Xiaobo. He could not even be considered a man. He was only 20 years old. At most, he could be considered an annoying little brat. In the lobby lounge, Song Xiaobo sneezed. His hand shook and pressed the accept button to add a friend that had just popped up. Before he could click on the delete screen, a big smiley face popped up on the game software's internal chat interface. Player Thunderbolt Lightning, Guru, I specially came to find you today. Take me to play, I promise I won't cheat you. Song Xiaobo frowned. A girl? Yes. The other party replied almost instantly. Song Xiaobo held his chin and thought for a while. He slowly typed a line of words. I won't bring a girl, she's too weak. Thunderbolt Lightning, how do you know I'm weak if you don't take me to play? You won't be able to find a girlfriend like this, Guru. Girlfriend? Song Xiaobo was slightly stunned. He pondered for a few seconds and typed another line of words. All right then, I'll take you to play. After a round, Song Xiaobo looked at the defeated players on the ground and Thunderbolt Lightning who did not have time to attack. He typed a line of words, You're really weak. The other party typed a line of crying emojis. Guru, it's not that I'm weak, it's that you're too good. I can't even use my skills. Guru, please don't delete me from your friend list. Can I be your follower? Guru? Song Xiaobo was almost blinded by the flashing dialogue boxes on the screen. He hesitated for a few seconds and typed a line of words. The composition of your equipment is not good, the defense is too extreme. Based on the composition of the equipment, the attack power of this set of equipment is too weak, you won't have an advantage in a battle. The other party suddenly stopped responding. Song Xiaobo stared at the screen for a while and hesitantly typed 3 question marks. The screen flickered and a line of starry eyes appeared. Thunderbolt Lightning, wow Guru, you can tell at a glance. The set of equipment I want can only be obtained when I get married, that's why I haven't had strong attack attributes. Guru, why don't we get married? Song Xiaobo hesitated for a while. No. The other party did not respond. Just as he was about to type, the sweet voice of the receptionist Xiao Chen suddenly came from the direction of the lobby. Assistant Gu, are you off work? Yes. The short conversation accurately fell into Song Xiaobo's ears. He quickly closed his laptop and rushed out of the resting area with his backpack and laptop. Brother. As soon as he heard this voice, Gu Qi's expression changed as if he had seen a ghost. He instantly quickened his pace and walked toward the entrance. Brother, wait for me, I've thought about the question you asked me last time. Song Xiaobo stumbled as he ran with his laptop and backpack. He grabbed Gu Qi's arm. Chapter 536. Gu Qi shook off Song Xiaobo's arm, but Song Xiaobo stuck to him like a piece of gum and refused to let go. After some tugging and tugging, Song Xiaobo's notebook fell from his armpit to the floor, making a loud noise in the middle of the bright and clean lobby. This loud noise attracted the attention of many passers-by. Gu Qi's expression changed slightly. He shook off Song Xiaobo's arm unhappily and said in a low voice, Are you done? Don't you know where this is? Haiyan Media was one of the few media companies in the industry that had a listed group as its backer. There had always been an endless stream of customers and business partners coming and going. Most of them came because of the background of Gu's group. After Yi Huanyan's identity as the second daughter of the Gu family spread in the circle of Lanjiang City, the threshold of Haiyan Media was almost broken. Even if they were fearless, Haiyan Media now also represented the face of Gu's group, so they couldn't be careless. A company with strict rules and regulations would never allow an unexpected situation to last more than 3 minutes in the lobby. Since Gu Qi was sent by Gu Xinian to run Haiyan Media in China, he had strictly followed the entire set of operation and management mechanisms of Gu's group, and there had never been a mistake. However, Song Xiaobo was a mistake. Yi Huanyan spent a lot of effort to bring him from Shanghai. If Gu Qi hadn't found him an eyesore and coaxed him to live in a hotel apartment outside, he would have been living directly on the top floor of Haiyan Media. Except for the newcomers, the people here knew him, and no one dared to touch him. It was common for him to pull Gu Qi, and now even the security guards wouldn't come over to ask about it. However, Gu Qi had endured such a situation to the extreme, and his face was already quite ugly. Song Xiaobo didn't care about the notebook that had fallen on the ground. After being stunned by Gu Qi's low roar for 2 seconds, he took a deep breath and said, "I've already figured out the question you asked me before. I really like Min Min. I know all of her likes and dislikes, as well as her background. You can't say that I did it on impulse." Gu Qi frowned, but Song Xiaobo didn't notice it at all. He had already started to recite everything he knew about Gu Min after his investigation, as if he was reciting a book. Min Min is 1.68 meters tall. She has never had long hair since she was young. She's not a picky eater, but she doesn't like to eat celery. Although she has a tough personality, she actually likes soft foods like tofu. She has a lot of personal skills. Whether it's kickboxing, swimming, skiing, or shooting, they're all top-notch. It was rare that Gu Qi did not interrupt Song Xiaobo. After he finished reciting the long list of information, he looked down at the notebook on the ground. "How much did you pay for your laptop?" "I assembled it myself." "I bought it. Give me your phone." Without waiting for him to finish, Gu Qi reached out his hand. Song Xiaobo handed his phone over slowly. Gu Qi took his phone and scanned it twice. When he heard a ding sound, he looked up at Song Xiaobo. "It's not cheap to assemble it yourself. Don't bother me anymore. Since you know so much about Min Min, I'm not the one you should be bothering." Song Xiaobo lowered his head and looked at the phone in his hand. It showed that 50,000 yuan had been transferred to his account. However, what surprised him wasn't the fact that Gu Qi had transferred the money to him, but what he had just said. This was probably the first time Song Xiaobo had heard such words from Gu Qi. Although his attitude was still cold, he didn't show his usual impatience. "Brother," Song Xiaobo hesitantly chased after him, but Gu Qi had already walked to the entrance and said, Min Min will be back in 2 days. I'm not sure how long she will stay here, and I'm not sure if she still remembers you. It's up to you. I'm warning you one more time. Don't bother me." Gu Qi's figure disappeared through the revolving door of Haiyan Media. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, Song Xiaobo was extremely excited. He picked up the shattered laptop on the ground and ran toward the gate of the elevator. Xiao Chen, who was at the front desk in the afternoon, had heard some gossip about Song Xiaobo from the headwaiter. When she saw him running over, she had mixed feelings. "Didn't Assistant Gu leave already?" "Mr. Song." Song Xiaobo waved his phone and interrupted her before she could finish. "I'm not going in. I'll make a call." With that said, he dialed a number. When Yi Huanyan received the call, she had just gone to the apartment. She was about to ask Ling Li, who was playing games in the apartment, to go home with her. Just as she got off the elevator and walked to the entrance of the apartment, she heard a ringtone coming from her pocket. Seeing that it was Song Xiaobo calling, Yi Huanyan could not help but smile. He probably heard from Gu Qi that Gu Min was coming back. This guy was quite infatuated. Gu Min was someone who had lost contact with the outside world after returning to the villa, but he was still waiting for her here. "Xiaobo, what's the matter?" "Well, Min Min is coming back." "I know. Can you do me a favor?" "What favor?" "I want to buy a new set of clothes. Come with me." Yi Huanyan did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Can't you go by yourself? Are you short of money?" I'm not short of money. I don't know how to buy clothes. Come with me. I only know you here." There was some truth to his words. Song Xiaobo knew Chen Yin and Su Hong, but Chen Yin had been promoting the movie all over the country for the past 2 days. Su Hong had nothing to do. "Where's Sister Hong? Why don't you look for Sister Hong? Sister Hong's clothes are too strange." I don't like them. Pfft. Yi Huanyan laughed out loud. If Su Hong heard this, she would definitely knock Song Xiaobo's head. Okay, then wait for me. I have a friend here. She has to come with us. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yi Huanyan entered the passcode on the door, opened the door, and entered the apartment. When she came to the company in the morning, she went straight to a meeting. She did not have time to ask Gu Qi to find a computer for Ling Li. After the meeting, she remembered that she heard from the secretary that Ling Li and Gu Qi had a quarrel. Although it was not a big deal, it was still a hot topic in the company. Later, when Ling Li came last time, a male staff member in the technical department found her a pre-configured laptop. The matter with Gu Qi was left unsettled. Yi Huanyan had been busy the whole day and only now did he have the time to care about her. He guessed that she was in a bad mood, so he opened the door carefully. The lights in the apartment were not turned on. The light from the laptop on the dining table in the living room shone on Ling Li's face. It looked a little strange, especially when coupled with her nervous face. It was even more creepy. What are you doing? Yi Huanyan turned on the light and stood at the entrance looking at her. When he saw her for the first time, he was shocked. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Ling Li acted as if she did not hear him. She was still biting her fingers and staring at the computer screen nervously. What's on your computer that's worth looking at? Yi Huanyan walked towards her with a suspicious look. Chapter 537. In the lounge area on the first floor of Haiyan Media's lobby, Song Xiaobo was bored out of his mind. He simply tapped on his tattered laptop twice before rebooting the internet. It was still the same game interface as before. Thunder and lightning. Why not? Your game attributes show that you are single. Don't you want to increase your attack attributes? Thunder and lightning. Guru? Thunder and lightning. Guru? Why did you go offline? Song Xiaobo pushed his black-rimmed glasses up his nose, sniffed, and typed a line of words. My first disciple can directly use all my equipment attributes. It's more convenient than marriage. She just needs to go through the process of becoming my disciple. Thunderbolt Lightning, he muttered the player's name. Suddenly, his heart bloomed with joy. This Thunderbolt Lightning was a lucky star. Once she came, she made his wish come true. Thus, he made an exception and accepted her as his disciple. Just treat it as fulfilling his wish. In the penthouse apartment, Yi Huanyan had just taken 2 steps toward the dining table when there was a sudden cheer at the table. Ling Li jumped 3 feet into the air, like a monkey, and suddenly hugged her. Yi Huanyan, my master agreed to accept me as his disciple. Ha ha ha. Yi Huanyan's frown deepened. What the hell? My master in the game is the guru. The guru is very powerful. It's the guru's first time accepting a disciple. I can inherit. No, not inherit. I can learn. I can learn all his moves. In the future, I'll be the guru. Yi Huanyan had never been interested in games. She listened to Ling Li in confusion and couldn't understand what he was saying. While she was in a good mood, she asked, I'm going to help a friend buy clothes later. Are you coming with me? Yes, I'm going to buy clothes too. Ling Li agreed. Yi Huanyan stared at him with a questioning look. What game is this? What's the situation? Are you in an online relationship? Let me tell you, there are a lot of scammers online. Why are you like an old lady? Ling Li rolled his eyes at her, closed the notebook, and pushed her shoulder to go out. Aren't you in a rush to buy clothes for your friend? Let's go. From the top floor to the first floor, Yi Huanyan was practically pushed out by Ling Li. After going downstairs, Ling Li hummed an English song and was in a very good mood. The two of them walked out of the gate side by side. Song Xiaobo stuffed the broken laptop into his backpack and walked towards Yi Huanyan. Let me introduce you. This is Song Xiaobo, a programmer. Hello. Without waiting for Yi Huanyan to finish speaking, Ling Li took the initiative to reach out his hand. He smiled at Song Xiaobo and said, My name is Ling Li. Song Xiaobo nodded but did not reach out his hand. Hello. Yi Huanyan looked at Ling Li's hand that froze in mid-air. She covered her mouth and coughed dryly. Xiaobo is a little shy. Forget about physical contact. Take your hand back. If this was any other time, Ling Li would have glared at her and scolded her for being so wishy-washy. Today, his temper was particularly gentle. He only raised his eyebrows, put his hand in the pocket of his down jacket, and asked as he walked. You want to buy clothes, right? Song Xiaobo nodded. Do you have a style you like? Or what style do you want? I can recommend it to you. Song Xiaobo looked up at Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan walked out of the door and explained as she walked towards the car. She majored in design in university. Although she majored in jewelry design, I heard that she dabbled in fashion design as well. It shouldn't be a problem for her to pick for you. These words were obviously praising Ling Li's taste. However, Song Xiaobo's brain was wired differently than normal people. When he heard these words, he immediately shook his hand. No, you can pick for me. I really don't like the kind of clothes they design. We designers have normal designers too. Ling Li retorted. Yi Huanyan was afraid that she wouldn't be able to control her temper. She quickly opened the car door and let the two of them in. Ling Li sat in the back. Song Xiaobo stood in front of the car door for 2 seconds before he opened the door to the front passenger seat. Yi Huanyan clearly noticed the change in Ling Li's eyes. She looked a little unhappy. Song Xiaobo was someone who didn't know how to read people's expressions. She had known him for a long time, so she knew it very well. However, this was the first time Ling Li had seen him. She might think that he was deliberately picking on her and looking down on her career as a designer. After they started the car, Yi Huanyan quickly changed the topic. They talked about the game that Ling Li mentioned just now. What's the name of the game you just told me about? Legend of Thieves. It's very popular. As expected, Ling Li's attention was diverted. She started talking about how exciting the game was and how amazing the #1 expert in the game was. I really should let you be the spokesperson for this game. Yi Huanyan commented with a smile. Indeed, this was the first time she saw such a crazy recommendation. Furthermore, it came from Ling Li. The car was parked in the mall's underground parking lot. The group took the elevator directly to the 4th floor of the mall. At your age, it's fine to wear something normal and youthful. I want to wear a suit. You're not working. Why wear a suit? Yi Huanyan looked around at the brands on the 4th floor. Also, if you're meeting Min Min, it won't look good if you dress too deliberately. You should do your hair when you have time. Who's Min Min? Ling Li interrupted. Yi Huanyan looked at Song Xiaobo meaningfully. Ask him. Ling Li looked at Song Xiaobo and raised his chin. My girlfriend. Song Xiaobo looked like it was natural. If you dare to say that in front of her, she'll beat you up. Yi Huanyan rolled his eyes at him. It's a question whether Min Min still remembers you. Girlfriend? Gucci was right. You're really shameless. Gucci? Ling Li frowned, revealing a displeased expression. Why is it related to that guy again? Min Min is Gucci's younger sister. Yi Huanyan casually explained and pulled Song Xiaobo into a men's clothing store. Let's take a look here. Ling Li's face darkened. After a while, he followed them and pointed at Song Xiaobo to ask Yi Huanyan. Did you say that he took a fancy to Gucci's perverted iceberg face's younger sister, but that perverted iceberg face was arrogant and felt that he wasn't good enough for his younger sister? Yi Huanyan was busy picking out clothes for Song Xiaobo and nodded perfunctorily. Something like that. Ling Li gritted his teeth. When he thought of what happened in the office in the morning, he wanted to chop Gucci up and feed him to the dogs. Try this one. Yi Huanyan chose a navy blue casual suit and handed it to Song Xiaobo. Try this. Didn't you want to wear a suit? This can be considered a suit. Song Xiaobo hurriedly carried the suit into the changing room. Yi Huanyan turned around to find a seat, but saw Ling Li standing behind her, rubbing his chin and looking thoughtfully in the direction of the changing room. Chapter 538. What are you looking at? Yi Huanyan nudged Ling Li with her elbow as she held the glass of water that the shop assistant had just handed over. Ling Li came back to her senses. Nothing. Hey, what kind of person is that Min Min? Is she also a big block of ice like that iceberg face? Who told you that Gu Qi has an ice face? I think he's usually quite gentle. That's towards you. Ling Li pursed her lips. You didn't see how he treated me. Then it must be because you did something that made him unhappy. Don't I know you? Hey! Ling Li couldn't help but shout. If it weren't for the fact that she still had something to ask Yi Huanyan, she would have definitely clarified the matter with Gu Qi. I won't talk to you about this for now. Tell me about that Min Min first. Why do you care about someone you don't even know? Yi Huanyan glanced at her suspiciously. Ling Li's face was serious. Didn't you ask me to help that silly boy pick out clothes? As a professional designer, I have to know what kind of woman he's catering to, so that I can find the right medicine for the problem. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. Your second uncle taught you Chinese, right? That's not how you use the right medicine for the problem. There's also the word, catering. And calling him a silly boy. Do you want me to help him pick out clothes? Didn't you say that you were tired and didn't want to move at all? Ling Li's words did indeed poke Yi Huanyan's heart. She had been busy with meetings all day, and in the afternoon, she was caught off guard by Umbo's sudden change of mind. She just wanted to go home, eat, take a shower, and sleep. However, Song Xiaobo had helped her a lot before, so she couldn't refuse him, so she accompanied him. Are you really interested in helping Xiaobo pick out clothes? Of course, why else would I come here with you? Then, all right. Yi Huanyan told him about Gu Min's personality and preferences, thinking that it was worth a try. In fact, Gu Min was a very simple person. She did not dress up and always had short hair. She had never heard her brothers say that she liked anyone. In Yi Huanyan's opinion, this girl was a simpleton. She treated her two brothers the same, but she obeyed Gu Xinyan's orders. Could it be that she likes your brother? Gu Min is almost 20 years younger than my brother. If my brother was as fast as your father, his child would be as old as her. I heard that when she drowned when she was young, it was my brother who saved her. She was very stubborn. After that, she felt that her life belonged to my brother. She listened to whatever my brother said. What if your brother allows her to marry that silly boy? Who knows? Yi Huanyan thought about Gu Min's character and said, maybe she will agree. Wouldn't she be a fool? If you have the ability, say it in front of her face. She has been practicing kickboxing since she was young. It's not on the same level as your half-assed karate. Ling Li raised his eyebrows with an unconvinced expression on his face. At this moment, Yi Huanyan's phone suddenly rang. She took it out and looked at it. The caller ID was Ling Han. She glanced at Ling Li. Ling Li waved his hand and looked indifferent. Okay, if you have something to do, you can leave. I will accompany him to pick out clothes. Since she said so, Yi Huanyan did not stand on ceremony. She picked up the phone and walked out of the mall with her coat. Anyway, Gu Min would not meet Song Xiaobo for a while. If she really could not find a suitable one today, she could accompany him another day. Ling Han's call was probably related to Umbo. What's wrong? Where are you now? Ling Han's voice came from the phone. It was clear but gentle. Thinking of the scene before she left the house in the morning, Yi Huanyan felt her throat tighten and dry. I'm in the mall. I'm shopping with Song Xiaobo. Gu Min is coming back. He wants to buy a new set of clothes to see her. Ling Li is also there. I just came out of the hospital. The doctor said that you can be discharged from the hospital before the spring festival and go home to rest. I think Mom wants to stay in the old mansion. Second uncle's family is coming back too. I'm afraid we have to clean up Shi Yuan. There's no rush. You called me just for this? Yi Huanyan pursed her dry lips. Why is Gu Min coming back? Ling Han asked from the other end of the phone. Yi Huanyan then realized that he probably didn't know about the change in the contract with Umbo. she explained. Umbo changed his mind at the last minute. He was supposed to sign the contract today, but he didn't. Hong Rizhang made things difficult for him. I don't know what he gave him, but now he's not answering Umbo's calls. The other end of the phone was silent for a few seconds. If that's the case, Gu Min doesn't have to come back. I'll get Wen Siyuan to ask his father what he got in the club this afternoon. During this time, he'll stay by Umbo's side. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan remembered that Ling Han had instigated Umbo's son to defect. She had forgotten about this. Okay, I'll tell Gu Qi later. By the way, has there been any progress on the equity transfer agreement you asked him to get? Ling Han's tone was unhurried as he analyzed. Based on today's situation, Umbo must have been angered by Hong Rizhang. I'm afraid he'll drink when he gets back. Wan Siyuan has a high chance of getting the equity transfer agreement. The two of them discussed the issue of pleasure for a long time on the phone. Yi Huanyan had a jacket on her arm. Since she told Ling Li that she was leaving, the phone call lasted for more than 20 minutes. She was still pacing around the elevator on the 4th floor. Ling Han didn't seem to have any intention of seeing her. But today was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There were no adults at home, no teenage boys and girls, and no annoying children. It should be a wonderful two-person world. Seeing that Ling Han didn't say anything in this direction, Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes and hinted, "It was very fun just now, you know." Ling Li actually took the initiative to help Xiaobo pick clothes and style. He didn't need my help at all. The person on the other end of the phone laughed. Maybe he's using that kid as a lab rat for experiments. I came out with the phone now, but the two of them didn't care about me. They probably went shopping by themselves. If I look for them later, I might not be able to find them. Just call them directly. Don't waste time. You're wearing high heels. Don't walk too much. Yi Huanyan was a little angry. She took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. In the end, she put all her eggs in one basket. I think they don't need me to accompany them shopping. They get along quite well. Ling Li is a girl after all. Don't let her have too much contact with that silly boy. These words almost made Yi Huanyan grind her teeth into pieces. She gritted her teeth and said, "They're really siblings. Even their nicknames are the same. Yen Yen, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing. I'm going shopping with them." "I don't have time to call you." "You don't have time to call? Then, do you have time to have a meal together?" Yi Huanyan frowned. She felt that the source of the voice seemed to be. Chapter 539. Yi Huanyan turned around. Her movements were a little slow because she felt that she might have heard wrongly. She wasn't sure if the voice she had just heard came from this direction. She turned around and saw him walking towards her in the slowly ascending elevator. There was a smile on his face and it was full of love. "Why are you here?" She quickly walked forward, her eyes filled with joy. "If I said that I was going to the company to look for you, but before I got out of the car, I saw you driving away and I chased you all the way, would you believe me?" Ling Han lowered his head to look at her, and casually tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She blinked, as if all the unpleasantness from the phone call had vanished in an instant. "Really? Really?" There was a traffic jam on the road. The car that followed you got into an accident at the intersection. My car was blocked behind, so I arrived at the mall 20 minutes later than you. Liar. You were 20 minutes late, but you knew that I was coming in the direction of the mall? There's a GPS in your car. It's connected to my car. Hey, you're following me, right? Are you afraid that I'll cheat on you? Yi Huanyan looked up and glared at him. This reminded Ling Han of when she had just entered university. She seemed to have asked a similar question. At that time, it was Ling Dongming and Jiang Mailan who sent her to school. Before school started, she went to his room and asked if he was going. He was busy with work at that time, so he didn't agree. On the day school started, he couldn't help but drive over. When he arrived at the school gate, he saw Yi Huanyan standing in front of the trunk of her car. Her back was facing the school gate, and her hands were open like an old hen protecting its food, blocking Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan. He stopped the car and stood behind the huge stone lion statue at the entrance of their university. He could hear them clearly. "You guys can stop here. I'll go in myself." At that time, Jiang Milan was stomping her feet. "What are you doing? You still have a lot of luggage. You can't carry 2 suitcases." Ling Dongming smiled and tried to smooth things over. The girl has grown up. Nowadays, children are very particular about independence. Just let her be. I see that the boys in her school are quite diligent. There will always be someone helping her carry. Let's not get involved. Let's go. The mother and daughter were in a deadlock for a while. In the end, Ling Dongming dragged Jiang Milan away. As expected, not long after Ling Dongming left, a few older seniors surrounded Yi Huanyan and called her junior sister affectionately. "Which department are you in?" "Art department." "Ah, I'm also from the art department, a direct major." "Let's go, I'll help you carry your luggage." Hey, Zhongbo, what art department are you in?" Cough, cough. Me too. I'm in the same class as Zhongbo. We're all juniors in the art department. We'll help you. At that time, Yi Huanyan was not stupid, but she knew how to pretend to be stupid. She had 2 suitcases and a backpack by her side, and she let the 3 seniors who pretended to be her direct major help her carry them. She did not expose such a clumsy lie. Ling Han was originally standing behind the stone lion. When he saw such a scene where there were too many wolves and too little meat, he did not think much of it and followed her. He stood behind her and called out to her, "Yi Huanyan." She turned around, and her ponytail swung in a beautiful arc. Her bright eyes seemed to be hiding a myriad of light, and they bloomed in an instant. They were filled with joy. "Why are you here?" The 3 boys looked at each other. "Junior sister, this is my brother." "Oh, hello, brother." The 3rd-year seniors were wily old foxes. When they saw that it was someone of the same generation and not her boyfriend, they immediately smiled cheekily. Ling Han's expression darkened. He was a little displeased and said coldly, "How many times have I told you? Carry your own things yourself." A boy tried to smooth things over. "It's okay, we're direct students." "Oh?" Ling Han raised his eyebrows, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "The armband of the Academy of Arts is colored, right? Isn't this blue one from the Academy of Mechanical and Electrical Engineering?" The 3 boys fled in panic. Later, Ling Han reluctantly carried a suitcase for Yi Huanyan, and the rest of the backpack was on her shoulders. Under the hot summer sun, he pitifully pushed the suitcase all the way to the dormitory. He originally thought that he should have angered this girl enough, but when he reached the dormitory, he turned around and met that pair of sparkling eyes. "Hey, you're afraid that I'll be abducted by other boys, right?" Her eyes were wide open, sparkling with a cunning light as she looked at him with a smile. Now that he thought about it, it seemed like yesterday, but it had been more than 10 years. The 4th floor was the shopping mall, and it was time to get off work. The 5th floor was the F&B department, and white-collar workers liked to eat here. People came and went in the elevator, and when they walked past them, handsome men and beautiful women could not avoid turning their heads. Many people turned their heads to look at the 2 of them. Ling Han could not see anything else in his eyes. He could only see her in front of him. Yi Huanyan was looking up at him with a smile. The cunning in her eyes was the same as it was more than 10 years ago. Ling Han's heart softened. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. His large hand gently patted her back. The complicated sigh in his eyes gradually turned into endless doting. "Yes, I'm afraid. Back then, I was afraid that you would be snatched away. Now, I'm still afraid." In the garage of the old house, the car had just parked in the garage when it shook. "Someone." Yi Huanyan panted heavily. There was not much rationality left in her mind. Ling Han pressed the remote control, and the rolling door of the garage slowly fell down. The lights in the garage were not turned on. At this moment, the light at the door was blocked, and gradually, only darkness was left. Yi Huanyan only felt that the breath beside her ear was getting hotter and hotter. Her earlobe was numb from being bitten. Her body was like a string, and it was very difficult for her to endure being teased. In the end, she could not help but let out a moan, and then her whole body went soft. Ling Han carried her from the front passenger seat and put her on his body. He separated her legs and knelt in front of him. His hands stroked her slender and smooth legs, and the waves of trembling touch made her unable to stop. Yi Huanyan's hands hooked around his neck. With his various teasing movements, she bit her lips and could not help but lean on him. Two soft lumps buried his face deep several times. His clothes rubbed, and the buttons on the back loosened, releasing two plump areas. He bit the budding buds, kissed and sucked. Ah! Yi Huanyan's hoarse moans echoed in the car. The fire of lust under her body became more and more provocative, and the firm burning heat pressed against her private area. One of her hands moved down his back, and slowly touched his waist. Bada! After the crisp sound of the belt buckle, the obstacle was completely removed. Ling Han bit her collarbone. His big hand reached under her skirt and uncovered a thin piece of cloth. Her eyes were blurred, and her hands were tightly wrapped around his neck. She supported herself on his shoulders and raised her perky buttocks. She could not wait to sit down. In the dark environment, only the sound of men and women panting, the sound of skin and clothes rubbing, and the sound of flesh colliding could be heard. It all mixed together and merged into a beautiful obscene movement. Chapter 540. After Ling Li came back by taxi, she entered the yard. There was no sound in the yard. Ling Han and Yi Huanyan's rooms were also dark. Before she returned to her room, she stood at the door for a while in doubt and looked down at her wrist. It was 8:30. She went to bed so early? In the villa of the Wan family in the western suburbs. After dinner, Umbo went into the study. Zhou Lan went upstairs after cleaning up the dishes. When she passed by the door of Wan Siyuan's room, she was pulled in by him. Her exclamation was drowned out by Wan Siyuan's hands. "Are you crazy?" She covered her chest with lingering fear. "The old man is in the study next door." Wan Siyuan held her shoulder, regardless of her panic. After a hot kiss, he gasped, "Lon Lon, don't you want to help me?" Zhou Lan was dizzy by his kiss, and her eyes were blurred. "How can I help you?" "It's very simple." Wan Siyuan leaned close to her ear and whispered a few words. Zhou Lan frowned and stared at him for a long time. "Do you really want me to do this? My father's study is locked all year round. If you don't use this method, there is no way to get in under normal circumstances. Lon Lon, if you help me this time, you will save my life, my good Lon Lon. If I help you this time, what about in the future? In the future, I will take you far away and leave this damn place. Don't you care about your father? This old man didn't care about my mother's life or death in those days. Why should I care about him? I only want you." Sweet talk was Wan Siyuan's specialty. In these years, there were many evil debts of romantic pleasure outside. There were many experienced people who fell into his hands. Except for those who were smart enough not to be fooled by him, women like Zhou Lan who relied on men and had no ideas of their own were easily coaxed. At the moment, Zhou Lan went downstairs with a bowl of lotus seed soup and went into the study. Umbo was not in a good mood today. He had drunk a lot of wine in the evening. At this moment, he was sitting behind the desk, staring blankly at a pile of folders. His expression was very gloomy. Zhou Lan brought the soup over and brought it to the desk. "Hubby, this soup is good for sobering up. You won't have a headache tomorrow morning if you drink it." As she spoke, Zhou Lan placed the soup bowl in front of him. Her slender wrist was wrapped in a platinum chain. Looking up from her wrist, it was her jade-like arm. Umbo was a little absent-minded. He hadn't vented his anger after drinking. Now that he was drunk, he grabbed Zhou Lan's wrist and pulled her onto his lap. "Slut, why are you wearing such skimpy clothes here? Are you missing me?" A hint of disgust flashed through Zhou Lan's eyes. She lowered her head and pretended to be shy as she hammered Umbo's chest. "You're so annoying. You're drunk. I'm not going to be with you. Even if I'm drunk, I can still serve you well." As he spoke, Umbo's hand had already reached under her skirt and pulled down her underwear. He looked like he was ready to take care of her on the spot. Zhou Lan clamped her legs together to prevent him from moving. She hooked her arms around his neck and drew circles on his chest with one hand. She said coquettishly, "I still want to serve you well. Aren't you unhappy today?" Umbo's heart skipped a beat. While he was in a daze, he saw her crawl up from the side. Her 2 legs were on either side of his waist. A pair of hands painted with red fingernails unbuttoned his shirt. Then, she separated her hands from the front of his shirt to both sides and wrapped them around his waist, massaging all the way down. The sound of the door closing came from the direction of the study, accompanied by Zhou Lan's coquettish voice. "Forget it. Let's go back to the room first. Don't let Siyuan see us." Then, there was the sound of the master bedroom door slamming shut. Wan Siyuan quickly opened the door and walked to the door of the study. As expected, he twisted the handle of the study door effortlessly and walked in a flash. Umbo's seal had always been kept in the drawer of the study. It was not taboo for him. However, he usually locked the door when he left, so he did not know where to start. This was a rare opportunity. He pulled open the drawer and quickly found Umbo's personal seal. He stamped the transfer of shares. He squatted behind the desk and looked at the signed transfer of shares. He heaved a sigh of relief. With this, he could pay back the debts he owed outside. He no longer had to hide from his enemies. Just as he was thinking, with a loud bang, the door of the study smashed into the wall. When Siyuan's throat tightened, his feet seemed to be stuck to the carpet, and he could not move an inch. "Come out." The old man's voice was unusually cold. It did not sound like he was drunk at all. When Siyuan swallowed hard, he knew that he could not hide, so he could only slowly stand up. At this moment, Umbo was standing in front of the desk, looking at him coldly. "Take out the thing in your hand." An equity transfer letter stamped with his red seal. He could not deny it. "Dad, listen to me. I was also forced to do this. It was Ling Han who forced me to do it." "Did he force you, or did the casinos in Macau force you?" Hearing the word casino, Wan Siyuan's face turned pale. His legs went soft, and he knelt on the ground. He held the corner of the table and stumbled, "Dad. You know. You went to Macau to help a friend deal with business." Umbo sneered, "I didn't know when you had business friends in Macau. Over the years, how much money did you lose outside?" "Do you really think I don't know? How much did you lose this time?" "Not much. No." Wan Siyuan lowered his head and did not dare to speak. "Is it 10 million or 20 million? Speaking of this, Umbo took a deep breath. His face suddenly changed, and he slammed the documents on the desk toward Wan Siyuan's head. "What kind of benefits did Ling Han give you? Why are you siding with an outsider and helping others scheme against your own father?" I was wrong, Dad. I was at my wit's end." Wan Siyuan lay on the ground and begged for mercy while hiding. "If those debt collectors find me, I will lose my life, Dad." "There's no way out." The last stack of documents slammed on Wan Siyuan's head. The sharp edge of the folder brushed his forehead, leaving a bloodstain. Soon, blood beads oozed out, which looked very shocking. Even though he was extremely angry in his heart, Wan Siyuan was ultimately his only son. Hence, Wan Bo ultimately did not harden his heart to continue scolding him. Instead, he fiercely glared at the latter and said, "You brought this upon yourself. Don't you know that Huan Yu is now tied to the same rope as us? If we don't have Huan Yu, Ling Han will hate us to the core. When the time comes, the two of us will be eaten by him until not even our bones are left." Wan Siyuan lay on the ground with snot and tears streaming down his face. He touched his face, which was covered in blood. He wailed even louder, "Dad, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Dad, shut up. Wen Bo kicked him in exasperation. Ling Han is also unscrupulous in order to get back pleasure. First, he let Su Nianhua pretend to be good, and then he instigated you, a disappointing thing. Su Nianhua. Wan Siyuan's sobbing voice suddenly stopped for a few seconds. He looked at Umbo with a puzzled face. How can Ling Han and Su Nianhua be together? Chapter 541. What's impossible? What do you know? Umbo was furious. He had always known that his son was a disappointment, but he had never expected his son to do such a thing. It's true. Wan Siyuan seemed to have seized an opportunity to atone for his sins as he hurriedly got up from the ground. Dad, it's impossible for Su Nianhua to have any kind of mutually beneficial relationship with Ling Han. They're basically competitors. They hate each other to the core. What did you say? Umbo frowned. What's their relationship? I'm afraid they're cuckolded. Wan Siyuan threw out this sentence meaningfully. There was a trace of relief in his eyes after surviving a calamity. Dad, if you're doing this business with Su Nianhua, you definitely don't have to worry that he'll help Ling Han take revenge on us. He definitely won't be in the same boat as Ling Han. Where did you hear that from? Let me tell you, that woman, Gu Huanyan, was the one behind that news. Her goal is to help her husband take back the pleasure group. When the time comes, we won't even be able to stay in Lanjiang. Do you know that? Umbo still didn't believe him. After all, in the information that Hong Rizhang had given him in the afternoon, one of them showed that Su Nianhua's relatives overseas weren't close. His uncle and his father had a grudge in the early years, so much so that Su Nianhua's uncle didn't even show his face when the Chao Lu Corporation was in debt crisis, let alone ask him to help buy the pleasure group. The other was the news of Su Nianhua's extramarital affair that had caused a stir for a few days. That news was exposed by Fengxing Entertainment. The strange thing was that Lei Ling and Fengxing Entertainment, like the Gu Corporation, were not in a hurry to suppress the news. Ling Han did not do anything at all. He waited until the news reached a certain height in the media before releasing a clarification announcement. This was not the Gu family's style at all. Dad, I'm telling the truth. That day, I heard Ling Han say it himself. His wife cheated on him. He said that he had to swallow his pride in order to wait for the day when he would take back his pleasure. Wan Siyuan's confident words made Umbo frown. A trace of doubt flashed in his heart. When did this happen? Just a few days ago, I just came back, at a nightclub. Wan Siyuan's voice became softer. I met Ling Han at the nightclub and he let it slip. He said that he and Gu Huanyan are not as harmonious as they seem on the surface. It's true. Hearing this, Umbo was silent for a few seconds and looked at Wan Siyuan thoughtfully. If what Wan Siyuan said was true, then the possibility of Ling Han being the one behind Su Nianhua's proposal was very small. Then who was the one behind him? Get up. He retracted his gaze from Wan Siyuan and walked towards the back of the desk. Wan Siyuan hurriedly got up from the ground, turned around and looked at Umbo respectfully. Give it to me. Umbo reached out and glanced at him. What he wanted was the document that he had been busy stamping behind the desk. Wan Siyuan's face turned pale. He handed the crumpled paper balls that he had been holding in his hand to Umbo. The share transfer agreement. It's his style to take back the pleasure group without losing a single soldier. Umbo's face turned livid. He glanced at Wan Siyuan and said with disappointment, If your brain was half as good as Ling Han's, I wouldn't have to be on tenterhooks every day. Wan Siyuan kept quiet and lowered his head, not daring to speak. His attitude made Umbo even more annoyed. He glanced at him impatiently and said, Tell me, since Su Nianhua and Ling Han are at odds, then can the acquisition between Su Nianhua and me go through? What should I say? Wan Siyuan's eyebrows drooped, looking spineless. Nonsense, if you don't say it, who else is here? Hearing this, Wan Siyuan coughed and shrunk his shoulders. I think, since you don't think you can give the pleasure group to my cousin, then you might as well give it to someone who is at odds with my cousin. Isn't the enemy of my enemy a friend? Since my cousin is at odds with Su Nianhua, and we are at odds with my cousin, then we are friends on the same side as Su Nianhua. Don't you think so? Normally, Wen Siyuan would be full of confidence when he said this. But today was different. The theft of the seal had just been discovered by Umbo. Now, he had no confidence at all. Even now, he still didn't understand what went wrong with his plan and how the old man found out that he had entered the study. And Zhou. There seemed to be no movement from the next room for a long time. The old man didn't mention Zhou, so he naturally didn't dare to take the initiative to mention it. He wanted to make it as clear as possible. Wen Siyuan's words were not very knowledgeable, but they did poke at Umbo's initial thoughts. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Since that's the case, the cooperation with Su Nianhua can be discussed again. But before talking about this cooperation, he had to figure out who was behind Su Nianhua. It was late at night, and the nightlife of Lanjiang City had just begun. It was bustling with lights and feasting. Su Nianhua was a little anxious waiting at home. He had been walking back and forth on the balcony with his phone in his hand. Zhang Rou was wearing a pink one-piece home dress. She opened the balcony door and asked with concern, "Are you still not sleeping?" Su Nianhua turned his head. After seeing Zhang Rou, he quickly put out the cigarette in his hand. Sorry. He hadn't smoked for a long time. This was the only condition that Zhang Rou put forward for him when they got married. At that time, Zhang Rou was pregnant. She was afraid that it would affect the child, so she asked him to quit smoking. Zhang Rou blinked and made a look of understanding. It's okay. Are you upset? Is it because of the acquisition that you promised Yi Huanyan? Xiaorou, don't get me wrong. I just feel that I have always owed her a lot. She has never asked me for help. If I can't help her this time, I know. You don't have to explain. Zhang Rou looked calm. What you owe her is what I owe her. What's more, this time it is for the two of them. If helping you can undo the knot in your heart for so many years, I am willing to help. There is no knot in my heart. There is nothing between me and her. I know. Hearing these words again, Su Nianhua touched his forehead helplessly. He didn't know how many times this conversation had happened. Women were always narrow-minded. No matter how magnanimous they usually looked, ever since Zhang Rou found out that Gu Huanyan was Su Nianhua's first love, Yi Huanyan, during the filming of The Remaining Life, this feeling of awkwardness had not disappeared. No matter how he tried to explain it, Zhang Rou started to feel awkward as soon as Yi Huanyan was mentioned. On the surface, she looked indifferent and tolerant, but in fact, the more indifferent she looked, the more uncomfortable it made people feel. Is Jingjing asleep? Su Nianhua changed the topic. At the mention of her daughter, Zhang Rou's expression became much more normal. She is asleep. Chapter 542. It's been so long since the winter holidays started. I should take her out to play. Once I'm done with my work, we'll go for a holiday. It's okay. It's a waste of time and money. I'll take her to the amusement park. You go do what you need to do. Didn't Brother Lei accept a TV series for you? Take advantage of the popularity and act in some children's dramas. It'll be helpful for you. Except for the matter with Yi Huanyan, Zhang Rou had always been very generous and virtuous. She had always been impeccable. For the past few years, even when he went out for commercial performances during the Chinese New Year and did not stay at home with them, Zhang Rou had never complained. Thinking of this, Su Nianhua felt a little guilty. He pulled Zhang Rou into his arms and said tenderly, "The TV series hasn't started yet. Even if it has, we'll just ask for leave from them. During the Chinese New Year, we'll go to the Maldives. Haven't you always wanted to go? Bring Jingjing along and we'll make up for our honeymoon." Zhang Rou leaned on his chest and smelled the faint smell of tobacco on his body. It was mixed with the fragrance of the shower gel. She couldn't help but blush. Even though they had been married for so many years and their child was already so big, she still admired Su Nianhua. It was still the feeling of her heart beating non-stop when she saw him affectionately sing a love song on TV for the first time. So, she agreed in a daze. After that, she suddenly came back to her senses. That's not right. Before they got married, they had agreed to go to Iceland for their honeymoon. It's fine if they changed places because I went to Iceland before. But why do they have to bring their child along for their honeymoon? What happened to the two of us? The next morning, the sky was clear and the weather was cool. The weather forecast said that it would snow at night, but there were no signs of snow during the day. The sun was warmer than usual, and it melted most of the snow on the ground. Ling Li woke up early in the morning and went out for a jog. Then, she came back and did a full set of morning exercises in the yard. The door of the opposite house was closed. She looked down at her wrist. It was already 8:30 a.m., but there was still no sound from the opposite house. It couldn't be that he didn't come back all night, right? Yi Huanyan was sleeping soundly when she suddenly heard a knock on the door. Ling Li's voice came through the door. Are you there? What time is it? Yi Huanyan, aren't you working? Yi Huanyan shrunk into the blanket. Her snow-white neck rested on Ling Han's chin, and a pair of large hands wrapped around her waist. Both of them were naked under the blanket, and there was a pile of clothes beside the bed. Now that she heard Ling Li's voice, she suddenly felt like she was being seen. She reacted for a few seconds and hurriedly pushed Ling Han awake. Ling Han snorted from his nose, turned over, and pressed on top of her. He whispered in her ear. What happened? His voice was still mixed with the lust from last night. It was a bit hoarse, and it was so charming that it made people tremble. Yi Huanyan resisted the urge to have a nosebleed, pushed him, and lowered her voice. Your sister is shouting outside. Respond, I'm going to take a shower. Ling Han was very strong, and it was in the morning, so he was most energetic. When he turned over and pressed on top of her, he felt the heat of her body. Probably because of shyness, she became excited with a little teasing. At this moment, 2 points of her upper body were pressed against his chest, and they were naked, so he could feel the firmness of her chest. You! Yi Huanyan opened her eyes wide and looked at the man on top of her in disbelief. At this moment, the hard thing between her thighs reminded her of last night's passion, which was really unforgettable. Stop it, Ling Li is still outside. Yi Huanyan was a little flustered. She quickly reached out and pushed his chest. Her slender and fair hands were pressed against his burning chest. She felt as if she had been scalded, and she couldn't help but cry out in alarm. He leaned over and gently bit her earlobe. It's still early. What do you mean it's still early? Yi Huanyan saw that he was excited and immediately became anxious. She turned around and looked at the alarm clock. It's 8:30. Just once. The whispers by her ear made her excited. She couldn't help but feel his hands on her body. In the end, she said, Then hurry up. A warm and moist feeling came from his chest, accompanied by his deep breathing. I'm afraid it won't be soon. A certain someone outside the window was already anxiously knocking on the window. He knocked on the window until it made a loud noise, but the two burning with desire inside the window had no intention of responding. Yi Huanyan was embarrassed. During the whole process, she gritted her teeth and tried her best not to make a sound. However, Ling Han seemed to be deliberately teasing her. He lit a fire on her body all the way, turned over her body, and kneaded her perky but with his big hand neither lightly nor heavily. Ah! Yi Huanyan almost bit her lips until they bled, but she couldn't help but let out a moan. The sound of knocking on the window stopped abruptly. A cry of "Oh my God!" came from outside the window, followed by the sound of footsteps running away. Ling Han. Yi Huanyan turned around and glared at him angrily. The culprit had no intention of repenting. He leaned on her back and responded softly. His waist twitched, and something under him rubbed between her thighs. It was getting harder and hotter. Her face was red, and she almost broke her teeth from clenching them. Don't. If you want to die, then die. Let's do it quickly. Don't what? His teasing voice sounded in her ear. Hurry up. Ling Han, you're really... Yi Huanyan was so embarrassed that her face turned red. It was broad daylight, and the room was full of sex. There was also a young girl outside who hadn't graduated yet. She already knew what they were doing and was scared away. "Are you sure you want me to hurry up?" His teasing voice became more and more arrogant. Yi Huanyan said in a huff, "I'm sure." As soon as she said that, the world spun. Yi Huanyan's elbow was pulled up. Ling Han pulled her up from the bed and sat her on his lap with her back facing her. His erection was now pressed against her back. Her whole body was exposed to the air. The light from the gaps in the curtains scattered on her smooth back. It was as white as jade. Ling Han's hands slid from the sides of her waist to the front. He wrapped his arms around her waist and touched her soft stomach. Then, he explored the inside of her thighs. Between his slightly cold fingers, the places where he slid past made her skin tremble. He suddenly separated her legs and lifted her up by the base of her thighs. He moved his waist, found the right position, and put her down steadily. "Ah!" The moment she sat down, Yi Huanyan cried out in pain. The pressure from the tunnel under her made her whole body tremble. The pain from the friction made her suck in a breath of cold air. The rapid jerking made her unprepared. She pinched the arm of the person beside her and cried out in anger. "Ling Han!" Her lower body didn't stop moving as she moved up and down violently. She heard a mischievous laugh in her ear. "Yen Yen, you're the one who wants to be fast." Yi Huanyan put a hand on his arm. Along with his thrusts, she felt as if she was sitting on a trampoline and bouncing non-stop. At first, she felt pain. Then, she got used to his size. The frequency of moving in and out made her more and more happy. Gradually, she let out a comfortable moan. She couldn't refute the vulgar words in her ear. Chapter 543. Ling Li covered her ears and stumbled back to her room. Even though she couldn't hear anything after closing the door, the moan just now kept echoing in her ears. The United States was open, but she didn't like parties since she was a child. She would rather stay at home and play games than go out, so she didn't have many friends. Even if she had suitors, they would be rejected by her with a look of disdain. Therefore, at the age of 20, it was the first time she had heard of such a thing in person, except for the compulsory physiological education classes in school. Except for Ling Dongyu and Ling Zhan, she had very few chances to have contact with an adult man, and it could be said that there was no intimate contact. However, the moan just now reminded her of the situation in Yi Huanyan's office the previous morning. That man had a faint ink smell that was different from others. It was a little cold, and the entanglement of their limbs was very overbearing. For the first time in 20 years, she experienced this kind of overbearing and contemptuous treatment. Ling Li sat down on the bed, her face red. God, why did she think of that damn iceberg face? She shook her head violently, trying to drive away the strange thoughts in her mind, but her face was crimson, and she couldn't drive them away. She walked back and forth in the room alone, fanning her face with her hands to try to cool down. After a long time, she came back to her senses. On the way to the company, it was very quiet in the car. Yi Huanyan was driving. It seemed that he was looking straight ahead, but in fact, from the corner of his eyes, he was peeking at Ling Li in the back seat from the rearview mirror. It was so embarrassing. Damn Ling Han. Ling Li also felt strange. Couldn't this kind of embarrassment be avoided? Seeing that she was in a hurry to go out, he got into the car without hesitation. Ling Li had been playing with her phone with her head down. After 2 rounds, she died inexplicably. She didn't get angry at being called an elementary school student by her teammates. She just stared at the gray interface in a daze. The two of them arrived at Haiyan Media with their own ulterior motives. After getting out of the car, Ling Li followed Yi Huanyan into the office and coincidentally bumped into Gu Qi, who was carrying a stack of documents out of the office. When he saw Yi Huanyan, he respectfully greeted her and then followed them into the office. When he saw Gu Qi, Ling Li felt inexplicably irritated. After entering the office, he found the furthest sofa and sat down, not even looking at him. After listening to Gu Qi's instructions, Yi Huanyan glanced at the corner of the sofa and coughed dryly. Ahem, that, Ling Li, follow Gu Qi to look for a laptop later. It's up to you whether you want to go upstairs to the apartment or stay in the office. No need. I'll ask Brother Zhang to find me a laptop. I don't need him. Ling Li hurriedly waved his hand. Gu Qi raised his deep eyes and glanced at her. If you're talking about Zhang Bo, then let me tell you. He's on leave today and is not in the office. If you want a laptop, come with me. If not, stay here and don't go anywhere. Don't disturb the other employees in the company. Ling Li, who originally had the mentality of hiding if he couldn't provoke Gu Qi, instantly collapsed when he saw Gu Qi's attitude. Ling Li almost jumped up from the sofa. What do you mean? Who am I disturbing? Don't complain first and blame me. Yi Huanyan, don't listen to him. Gu Qi's expression was cold. He turned around and glanced at Yi Huanyan. President Gu, I'll go back to work first. Hey, what do you mean, you? Ling Li shouted in the direction where Gu Qi left. Ling Li, that's enough. Yi Huanyan helplessly interrupted Ling Li's roar. She gently comforted him. This is my office. Give me some face. Stop fooling around. Hurry up and follow him. Ask Gu Qi to find a laptop for you. After that, go play by yourself. Why are you arguing with him? He's 10 years older than you. Ling Li jumped down from the sofa. He put on his shoes angrily and slammed the door. Who wants a laptop from him? If not, I'll find an internet cafe. Looking at Ling Li's back as he slammed the door and left, Yi Huanyan swallowed the words she wanted to say. There was really no internet cafe within a few miles of here. In the business center, every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. Besides, white-collar workers did not have time to play children's games in internet cafes. In this place, internet cafes really could not survive. If she did not lower her head now, she might have to kneel down later. Yi Huanyan did not care too much about Ling Li's matter. After all, he was an adult and could be responsible for himself. She lowered her head and looked at the contract that Gu Qi had just sent. Her face returned to a serious expression. Before she left in the morning, she received a call from Su Nianhua. He said that Hong Rizhang had taken the initiative to look for him and wanted to ask him out for a chat. What to talk about? Naturally, it was about the acquisition. As for the contents of the folder, it was still unclear. What attitude should I take this time? On the phone, Su Nianhua was a little nervous. After all, he was not a businessman and lacked experience in negotiations. He was already caught off guard when Hong Rizhang suddenly stood him up. After only one night, the situation changed again. He did not even have time to prepare. Just like before, don't show an angry or eager attitude. If he brings up yesterday's matter to explain, just go along with him. Don't show too much interest in pleasure, but don't be too cold either. This was what Ling Han said. Whether it was negotiating or understanding of Umbo, no one could compare to Ling Han. After hanging up the phone, Ling Han said that he was trying to contact Wen Siyuan and asked Yi Huanyan to wait for his call. Just as she was thinking, her phone rang. Have you arrived at the company? Ling Han's voice came from the phone. Yes, how are things on your side? I've contacted Wen Siyuan. Last night, he did not get the stamp. Umbo really did have the information of Su Nianhua's overseas relatives. Wen Siyuan is useless, but in the end, he still fell into the trap. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's face was filled with joy. He told Umbo about my relationship with Su Nianhua, didn't he? The soft yes on the other end of the phone almost made Yi Huanyan jump up on the spot. He had buried this line for so long just in case. Now, he had to win in the midst of danger. He had to be stable. In the afternoon, it was still Umbo's private tea house. Su Nianhua arrived early this time. Umbo entered the room at 3 o'clock on time. Mr. Su, sorry to keep you waiting. Umbo reached out his hand. Su Nianhua smiled faintly and responded, It's okay. I didn't have any jobs in the morning. I came 2 minutes early to make up for being late yesterday. Hearing him mention what happened the day before, Umbo's expression changed subtly. After sitting down, he coughed twice and said, "Yesterday, I had something to do at the last minute, so I didn't tell Mr. Su. Mr. Su called me later. I only saw it this morning. It's okay." Su Nianhua's expression was calm. "I was just entrusted by someone. I don't care if this matter is successful or not. It's just that it's quite rare to be able to make a friend like Mr. Wan. Entrusted by someone." Umbo's tone suddenly became cold, and he sneered, "I wonder who asked Mr. Su to do this?" Chapter 544. When Umbo asked this question, Su Nianhua looked surprised. "I wonder what Mr. Wen means." He knew very well that Umbo had suddenly stood him up yesterday and refused to answer his call. It was not a lousy excuse like he had something on at the last minute and did not have his phone with him. Umbo's eyes turned colder. "A straightforward person doesn't do underhanded things. My arrival today doesn't mean that our cooperation can continue. After all, I don't even know who I'm selling pleasure to. This is too laughable. If word gets out in the future, I can forget about keeping my old face." Su Nianhua's expression tensed up, and his voice became anxious. "I said before that I was helping my uncle. Has the grudge between your father, Lu Liang, and your uncle, Lu Feng, been resolved?" Before Su Nianhua could finish, Umbo interrupted him rudely. "If my information is correct, Lu Feng didn't even come to your father's funeral, right? Didn't your Chao Lu group get plotted against because Lu Feng stabbed you in the back? With such a grudge, do you think I'll believe that you were entrusted by your so-called uncle?" Su Nianhua's face turned green. He picked up the cup on the table and took a sip of tea. The matter had been exposed, and the old family scandal had been brought up again. Umbo saw the unwillingness he showed. Su Nianhua's face darkened as he said angrily, "If that's the case, why did you call me out? Is it because you want to tell me that you know everything about me and that my so-called commission is just a cover? Showing off in front of you that I've figured this out is what a child would do. I've lived for so many years. I'm afraid I can't do such a childish thing." Su Nianhua looked up in confusion at Umbo's words. "It's not like we can't talk about the acquisition. Are you still willing to talk about it? But I want to see the client behind you, the real client." Su Nianhua's face stiffened, and his eyes were evasive. "I don't have a client behind me." "No." Umbo sneered. "If that's the case, then I don't think there's anything to talk about." After saying this, he stood up and pretended to leave. "You. Wait a moment." Su Nianhua hurriedly stood up and said to his back, "Mr. Wan, your request is too sudden." "Suddenly?" Umbo turned to face Su Nianhua and said indifferently, "I know that the news of Mr. Su's overseas relatives is also very sudden. Since I'm in a hurry to transfer the pleasure group, then this matter is urgent." Su Nianhua's face paled. "Then give me some time to think about it." "Time?" Umbo laughed. "Of course, I have an appointment with CEO Hong of Venture Media this Saturday night at Dawn Hotel to discuss the signing of the contract. If nothing goes wrong, the contract will be signed on the spot. Do you want to come and have a drink?" "This Saturday?" Su Nianhua clenched his fingers. That was the day after tomorrow. The survival of the pleasure group depended on the signing of the contract the day after tomorrow. After leaving the clubhouse, Su Nianhua dialed Yi Huanyan's phone. "Just as you thought, Umbo insists on seeing the client. I'm afraid we can't hide it this time." On the other end of the phone, Yi Huanyan's voice was very calm, as if she had already expected this result. She pondered for a few seconds. "At this point, we can't hide it, and there's no need to." "What else did he say?" "Umbo said that he's going to sign the contract with Hong Rizhang the night after tomorrow at Dawn Hotel." After hanging up the phone, Yi Huanyan looked up at Ling Han, who was sitting opposite the coffee table. Su Nianhua said that it's almost as you expected. Umbo is once bitten, twice shy this time. He has to see the client. Ling Han came in the afternoon. As usual, he went to the hospital to see Ling Zhan, Ji Xiaoye, and a group of people from the Gu family who crowded in the hospital to accompany the patients to eat melon seeds. He also brought his son to Haiyan Media. During this period of time, Yi Huanyan and he were both busy. His son had not seen them for a while. Also, Umbo said that he plans to sign the contract with Hong Rizhang this Saturday. The location and time have been set. It seems that he's not just trying to scare us. Not necessarily, Ling Han looked calm. If Umbo really planned to sign the contract with Venture Media, he wouldn't have met Su Nianhua. There must be something wrong with this. I'm afraid that he hasn't reached an agreement with Venture Media. How can that be? With a competitor, will Hong Rizhang not modify the contract content according to Umbo's request? Hong Rizhang thinks that he has something on Su Nianhua, so I'm afraid that he won't lower his conditions. Instead, he'll raise the price and take advantage of the situation. Ling Han's analysis made Yi Huanyan suddenly understand. Her eyes lit up and she said, "That means that we actually still have a lot of hope? Let's see how the lie is covered up the day after tomorrow." The two of them talked about some of the details of the previously set up. They were worried that there would be another mistake, so they tried to unify their statements. They didn't want anything to go wrong on Saturday. When they finished chatting, it was already dark outside. The two of them suddenly realized that their son, who was supposed to be eating snacks on the sofa, was gone. "Where's Naneo?" Yi Huanyan was the first to react. Ling Han was slightly stunned and was also shocked. Fortunately, there were cameras everywhere in Haiyan Media. He directly checked the cameras and found that the two of them were chatting. Naneo came out of the office and went to the first floor. The cameras couldn't see clearly in a blind spot in the lobby lounge on the first floor. Yi Huanyan called the front desk and confirmed that Naneo was in the lounge. Why did he go to the first floor? Ling Han was a little puzzled. Yi Huanyan figured out the situation from the phone call and smiled helplessly. His idol is downstairs. How can he stay here with us? Go upstairs and call Ling Li. I'll go downstairs first. There are a lot of people today, so we can go out for dinner tonight. Who else? Your son's idol. As for the fact that Nao's idol was that shameless young man, Song Xiaobo, Ling Han was very unwilling to accept the reality. After all, he had spent a lot of effort just to barely make his son look at him in the eye, and this Song Xiaobo had become his son's idol just because he knew how to type a few codes. Most importantly, after his son saw his idol, he directly ignored him, his father, and kept sticking to Song Xiaobo, refusing to leave. He kept calling him Master, Master. This made Ling Han very depressed. Ling Li and Song Xiaobo got along well. The two of them seemed to have a lot in common. During dinner, Song Xiaobo kept asking about various ways of dressing, while Ling Li talked about games. The two topics were completely unrelated, and so they chatted until the end of dinner. "You're not interested in games?" When it was time to pay the bill, Ling Li seemed to have realized something. He followed behind Ling Han and suddenly asked Song Xiaobo this question. Song Xiaobo habitually pushed up his glasses before answering the question, but today he pushed nothing. He suddenly remembered that Ling Li had brought him a pair of invisible glasses yesterday. Chapter 545. Without waiting for Song Xiaobo to reply, Naneo raised her head and said, "The game you just mentioned, my master is the best in the entire server." "Nonsense," Ling Li retorted without hesitation. "What the hell? Your master is the best in the entire server? My master is the best in the entire server. Use the game box to check it yourself. The best in the entire server, traceless clear waves, is my master." Clear waves? Ling Li's face froze. She suddenly realized something. After a few seconds of silence, she asked, "You said that his name is Traceless Clear Waves?" Naneo nodded solemnly, acting like a little adult. "Why would I lie to you? Let's not talk about this game. My master is in the top 10 of all the popular games in the entire Asia server." Ling Li still had a look of disbelief on her face as she stared at Song Xiaobo. "Your traceless clear waves?" Song Xiaobo could not push his glasses up, so he could only touch the bridge of his nose and nodded indifferently. Yeah. At that moment, at first, Ling Li had 10,000, what the F***ck, galloped across her mind. However, when she blinked and tried to look at Song Xiaobo, she suddenly felt that his body was covered in a layer of golden light. That guru I. She started to speak incoherently. Song Xiaobo still looked a little dazed. Ling Li took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Guru, my name is Thunderbolt Lightning. Song Xiaobo looked at her and nodded. I know. Ha. Ling Li's expression changed. You know. You said it yesterday in the car. Song Xiaobo was so calm that it was as if he was talking about something very normal. After seeing Ling Han and Yi Huanyan pay, he immediately turned his body and flashed past Ling Li, pulling Naneo along as he followed them. Ling Li stood alone for a while. When she came back to her senses, she quickly turned around and chased after them. Then, I told you yesterday, why didn't you respond? Song Xiaobo held Naneo's hand in one hand and the takeaway box in the other. He still looked calm and composed. Do I need any reaction? These words left Ling Li speechless for a moment, and he didn't say anything for a long time. Ling Li felt like he was going to have a split personality when the silly boy suddenly turned into a god in the game that he had to kneel down and lick. How could she have a good chat in the game? Then, should I call you guru or master in the future? Whatever, I don't care. Song Xiaobo glanced at her. But I don't like being called dumb kid. You can call me Xiaobo. Then, what about Master Xiaobo? Naneo was sandwiched in between the two of them. He had been holding back for a long time. When he heard this, he immediately rolled his eyes ruthlessly. He sounds like a driver. Brat. Ling Li glared at him and put her hands on her hips. Is there a parent controlling you? Why are you pestering my master? Naneo frowned and said unhappily, Come on, this is my master. Also, look at you and look at me. It's really obvious who's the brat. As he said that, he even squeezed Song Xiaobo's hand tightly as if he was demonstrating. If you're so capable, you should hold my master's hand too. You. Ling Li raised his hand, wanting to slap this damned child to death. However, because his parents were right in front of him and he still had to hitch a ride home later, he angrily retracted his hand halfway through. I won't go with you. Song Xiaobo sent Naneo to the car and turned to greet Ling Han. I have an appointment with an agent to look at a house. It's almost time, so I'll leave first. Look at a house? Yi Huanyan and Ling Li both poked their heads out of the car. What house? Min Min is coming back. Since I'm going to marry her, we need a house when we get married. Renting a house is too troublesome, and hotels aren't very good either. So, I want to buy one myself. Song Xiaobo's serious expression made it hard for others to laugh. Yi Huanyan hesitated. Well, do you have enough money? I saved a little. While he spoke, he glanced at his wrist. Time's up, I have to go. Goodbye. Seeing Song Xiaobo run toward the subway entrance, Yi Huanyan frowned and looked up to ask Ling Han, who was outside the car. Xiaobo said that he saved a little. How much did he save? Does he know what the housing prices in Lonjiang City are now? Ling Han shook his head. He was not interested in Song Xiaobo's matter. Instead, it was Ling Li who asked. Are houses in Lonjiang City very expensive now? Yi Huanyan turned around. I saw the news 2 days ago. The average price of a normal house is more than 50,000 yuan per square meter. If you buy a house in the city, it's more than 80,000 yuan per square meter. A small single apartment costs 2 to 3 million yuan. So expensive. Ling Li frowned. Then that's stupid. What does Xiaobo do for a living? Is he just an ordinary programmer in your company? How's his income? He doesn't have a job. He's only working in my company in name. Right now, he's living in a hotel. Gu Qi is renting it for him on a yearly basis. He usually eats at the hotel, so he doesn't spend much. However, He seems to have a part-time job, probably something like a programmer. I'm not sure what he does exactly, but he's not short of money. Then can he afford a house? This? Yi Huanyan thought for a while and suddenly realized that something was wrong. She turned around and said, "Why are you suddenly so concerned about whether he can afford a house? Do you have a crush on him?" Hearing this, Ling Li's face turned red. "What? No, I don't." Naneo, who was beside him, did not mind the commotion. "You're blushing." "I'm not." "You are." Yi Huanyan and Ling Han looked at each other with smiles in their eyes. The car was filled with noise. Under the starry night sky, the car passed through the bustling streets and steadily drove toward the suburbs. Saturday night. In a private room on the first floor of Dawn Hotel, Hong Rizhong arrived very early. After several unexpected situations, he was also worried that a long night might cause trouble. Umbo finally relented. Seeing that the acquisition was about to be completed with a 10% discount, this was a great bargain. In the private room, a table full of dishes was served. Hong Rizhong became more and more uneasy as he waited. Half an hour later than the agreed time, Umbo arrived. "Oh, I'm sorry. There was a traffic jam on the road, so I'm a little late." "You've been waiting for a long time." Hong Rizhong was unhappy, but he still had to smile. Even if there were no competitors, at this final juncture, he could not fall out with him. What if a cornered dog jumped over the wall? "It's okay, you're an elder. Although I call you old brother, you're dozens of years older than me. It's only right for me to wait for you." "You're saying this much better than before." Umbo nodded, looking very much in agreement. "I've always felt that you're a little too thick-skinned to call me old brother." Hong Rizhong frowned, and there was a hint of dissatisfaction in his eyes. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, suppressing his emotions. "The dishes are cold. President 1, why don't we sign the contract first, and then have a few drinks?" "No rush." Umbo glanced at him. "I have a friend coming." Chapter 546. Friend. Hong Rizhong's eyes narrowed. "Aren't we signing the contract today?" Before Umbo could answer, the door to the private room opened, and the waiter led a tall man in. The man was wearing a linen suit. He was 1.85 meters tall, but he had a very bright aura. His entire person was out of place with the austere atmosphere in the room. A singer, or rather, an actor, should not appear at the scene where they were discussing business, especially when they were discussing such an important contract. However, his appearance was not very abrupt. After all, before this, Su Nianhua had ruined the acquisition of pleasure by venture media. "Mr. Wan, what do you mean by this?" Hong Rizhong's face tightened, revealing a nervous expression. Even though he felt that Umbo would never work with him again after seeing Su Nianhua's information, the appearance of Su Nianhua at this moment had indeed caught him off guard. A long night was fraught with dreams. Indeed, a long night was fraught with dreams. "This is the friend I want to introduce to you. Mr. Su is famous, and CEO Hong is also a celebrity in the industry. Even if the two of you didn't know each other before, you should be familiar with each other, right?" Umbo seemed to be happy to see such a scene. The two sides were fighting over the prey, and the prey was in his hands at this moment. He enjoyed the feeling of controlling the situation. Hong Rizhong's face had already fallen, but Su Nianhua smiled calmly. "Mr. Wan, I've brought the person you want, but I'm afraid there are outsiders present, so I need to talk to you in private." "CEO Wan, don't forget that the purpose of today's meeting is to sign the contract with me. Don't listen to others and forget what happened before. There are only 0 and countless times of deception. I've waited for you here for so long, so I'm considered sincere." Hong Rizhong was obviously anxious and began to sow discord. Although there was nothing wrong with what he said, Umbo was a person who cared about his reputation. Previously, he had been very secretive about being cheated by Su Nianhua. Now that Hong Rizhong directly brought it up, he was even more embarrassed. His expression darkened. It's up to me whether to sign the contract or not and who to sign the contract with. Mr. Hong, if you have the patience, you can wait here. If you don't, you can leave now. This meal is on me. I can still afford it. Hong Rizhong's face stiffened. He knew that he had misspoken, but the words that had been said were like spilled water. At this moment, no matter how hard he tried, he could not take them back. By the time he came back to his senses and wanted to change his words, Umbo had already angrily followed Su Nianhua out of the room and headed next door. Who was the person behind Su Nianhua? He wanted to see for himself. The waiter opened the door, and Su Nianhua stepped aside. Mr. Wan, please. Wenbo smiled and said as he walked, yes. In terms of quality, Hong Rizhong, who came from the grassroots, can't compare to you guys. Look at what he said just now. It's not like him. In any case, I'm a few years older than him. Even if the deal doesn't work out, we still have to be benevolent. When doing business, we always have to leave a way out for ourselves. A person like CEO Hong is indeed not suitable to be a trustworthy business partner. The voice in the room was a woman's voice. It was a little hoarse, but it was not unfamiliar to Umbo. Mr. Wan, long time no see. Yi Huanyan stood up and nodded politely. Umbo's eyes did not reveal much surprise. This was within her expectations, and it was also within Ling Han's expectations. They guessed that the reason why Umbo gave Su Nianhua a chance was that he had guessed, or rather thought that he had guessed, that the person behind it was Gu Huanyan. And he thought that Gu Huanyan had already broken up with Ling Han and was about to part ways. If that was the case, then cooperating with Su Nianhua would be like cooperating with Gu Huanyan. Relying on Gu Huanyan would be equivalent to relying on the Gu Corporation. Why not do such a good thing? Umbo glanced at her face meaningfully. It's been a long time. The last time we met, it was my nephew who introduced you to me. That was a year ago. Umbo was the first relative that Ling Han had introduced to Yi Huanyan. Yi Huanyan smiled embarrassedly. I didn't show up previously because I felt that it was somewhat inconvenient. In the end, I still couldn't escape your eyes. As juniors, we can only admit our mistakes. Please don't mind. I understand. Young people have their own opinions when it comes to matters of the heart. Umbo sized her up. I'm just curious what Miss Gu plans to do in the future. There's no problem with Pleasure Group taking over from me. But I hope you don't mind if I ask about the final owner? Yi Huanyan smiled and glanced at Su Nianhua beside her. It's prepared for Ah Shen. He's been an artist for so many years. It's time for him to move behind the scenes. Then on the surface, Umbo chuckled. I'm talking about my nephew. He's a reputable person. After the divorce, I'll make it up to him. At the mention of Ling Han, Yi Huanyan's expression turned cold. Although I can't return Pleasure to him, if he's willing, he can stay at Pleasure and be the vice president or go to the branch company. If he's unwilling, the money I'll give him is enough for him to live the rest of his life. Miss Gu, you're really straightforward. The Gu family has always done things this way. We don't owe anyone anything. I was afraid that you would care about your nephew's reputation, so I didn't do anything. To be honest, my brother and father have heard about it and they don't want me to get involved in this project anymore. Umbo's expression tightened. What's wrong? It's all because of Pleasure. My father and brother don't think it's worth it to make such a big fuss. At this point, Yi Huanyan didn't continue the topic. Instead, she changed the topic. But Ah Shan has been at Pleasure for a long time and he has feelings for it. He likes this place and he'll be familiar with the original management system in the future. I respect his opinion. As for my father and brother, they'll follow my lead. Umbo breathed a sigh of relief. Although he knew that since Gu Huanyan was here, there was no way she wouldn't want to sign the contract. But how much money did Gu Huanyan have? He was afraid that a small Haiyan media wouldn't be able to handle Pleasure. After all, it was still supported by the Gu Corporation. Actually, Miss Gu and Mr. Su have good taste. Pleasure Group has suffered a heavy blow now, but it has a good foundation. With a little repair, it can make a comeback. If it weren't for the lack of funds, I wouldn't have thought of selling it. After a round of back and forth, the initiative once again fell into Yi Huanyan's hands. Didn't I say that I respect Ah Shen's opinion? By the way, I've brought the contract. If you don't have any objections, we'll sign it today. What do you think? It's still the contract you gave me last time, right? Yes. I don't have any objections. Let's sign it directly. Straightforward. A few bold strokes on the contract, a personal seal, a signature, and a handshake were done in one go. Happy cooperation. Yi Huanyan and Su Nianhua looked at each other and smiled meaningfully. At this moment, there was a commotion at the door. The waiter couldn't stop Hong Rizhang. While he was struggling with his assistant, Hong Rizhang broke in. Chapter 547. When Hong Rizhang rushed in, Yi Huanyan was shaking hands with Umbo. Both of them were beaming with joy. Happy cooperation. With a bang, the door was knocked open. The assistant behind Yi Huanyan was tidying up the documents on the table. It was obvious that it was an acquisition contract. The ink on the side had not been cleaned up, so the whole scene was clear at a glance. Hong Rizhang's face suddenly became livid, and he said angrily, "Umbo, you old thing, are you playing with me?" Umbo's face tightened, and his face sank in an instant. Hong Rizhang, watch your words. In front of so many people, being criticized by a junior like this would make anyone lose face, not to mention that Umbo had always cared about his face. Hong Rizhang completely turned against Umbo. He walked to him in 2 or 3 steps, grabbed his neck collar, and roared, "You old thing, I've tolerated you for so long, but you dare to play with me today, *King. While speaking, he raised his fist and hit Umbo in the face. Hong Rizhang was born in the grassroots. In his early years, he came from the countryside. In the end, he had no culture, and his behavior was vulgar. After several times, he ran errands for people in the newspaper office. Later, by chance, he married the daughter of the chief editor of the newspaper office, and then he touched the edge of the media industry. In the past few years, he also mingled with the upper class. His violent temper was restrained, and he liked to pretend to be elegant. However, there was a saying that it was easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. When someone really touched his bottom line, his original face was completely exposed. Although Umbo was old, he had a good foundation. Otherwise, after being hit by Hong Rizhang's solid punch, he would have lost his life. At this time, he just staggered, flipped over, and fell to the ground. Before he could throw a second punch, the security guards next to him rushed forward and pulled Hong Rizhang down. Umbo lay on the ground, covering half of his face and groaning. After a long time, he was restrained. He looked like he had sprained his waist and pointed at Hong Rizhang angrily. "Crazy. How can I do business with a bandit like you? You're really crazy. I'm going to call the police." Hong Rizhang struggled in the hands of the security guards and shouted, "You're going to call the police? I think it's time to call the police and get yourself in jail. This woman." He glared at Yi Huanyan fiercely. "How dare you sign a contract with Ling Han's woman? Umbo, is your brain not working well because of your age?" Yi Huanyan didn't get angry no matter how he shouted. She waited for the assistant behind her to finish packing up all the contracts before glancing at him. "Mr. Wan is an elder. Mr. Hong, no matter how dissatisfied you are, you should save some face for your elders. It's unreasonable to yell like this." "Bah." Hong Rizhang spat at Yi Huanyan angrily. Su Nianhua's face tensed up. He shielded her behind him and gave the security guards a look. "Why aren't you asking Mr. Hong to leave?" Hearing this, the 2 security guards looked at each other with a troubled expression. At this moment, it was already very difficult for them to hold Hong Rizhang and not let him come out to hurt people. It was obvious that Hong Rizhang was trained, and his hand strength was very strong. "All right, CEO Hong isn't such an unreasonable person." Yi Huanyan sneered. He just lost in business and can't afford to lose. Hong Rizhang was so angry that his whole body trembled. Don't pretend to be a good girl. Gu Huanyan, let me tell you, others don't know about your background, but do you think I don't know? What second miss of the Gu family? Bah! Su Nianhua and Yi Huanyan's expressions changed slightly when they heard this. In the end, Hong Rizhang did not say what he wanted to say. The security guards rushed over after hearing the news and hurriedly dragged him out. Umbo's injuries were not light, so his assistant rushed to send him to the hospital. On the way out of the hotel, Gu Qi drove, Su Nianhua sat in the passenger seat, and Yi Huanyan sat in the back. The words in Shuguang Hotel made the three of them a little wary. Hong Rizhang knows about my identity. He didn't finish speaking. It might not be about this matter, Su Nianhua replied. If it's not about this matter, then what else can be considered as a background? Yi Huanyan asked. Apart from this matter, which I haven't announced to the public, I don't think anything else can be considered as a background, right? Su Nianhua was silent for a few seconds. He seemed to have suddenly thought of something and turned around. No wonder he was so sure that we were acting and spent so much effort to find my overseas relatives. Yi Huanyan nodded. The show they had put together back then was enough to pass off as real. From the TV interview to the private contact, if the news had not been suppressed in time, it would have almost become a major scandal of the male star of the year. However, Hong Rizhang saw that something was wrong at first glance. In such a short time, he directly started with Su Nianhua. As soon as he came, he checked his relatives and determined that he was helping Ling Han. Su Nianhua looked at Yi Huanyan in the back seat seriously. If he had told Umbo about this earlier, I'm afraid we wouldn't have signed this contract so easily. Yi Huanyan said thoughtfully. Sometimes, some people always want to leave a trick up their sleeve. Fortunately, it was a close call. With the contract in hand, Pleasure Group's future was bright. As long as they rested for a few days, they would be able to resume operations. This could be said to be a happy ending for everyone. However, Gu Qi's voice suddenly sounded in the car. He seemed to have thought about it for a long time before he spoke. Who told him about second Mrs. Identity? Gu Qi's voice was very deep. He had always been a person who paid attention to details. Since he brought it up, it meant that he felt that this matter was unusual and could not be casually ignored. Indeed, Yi Huanyan's identity was known to almost no one except for a few close friends. This was what made this matter suspicious. It's not difficult to find out if someone who knows your identity did an elimination method. Su Nianhua counted with his fingers and said, "The people from the Gu family's Four Seasons villa can be excluded. Xiao Yu and I have no contact with Hong Rizhang, so we can be excluded. Other than Ling Han, who else knows? Previously, you often moved between the two companies. Does anyone know anything?" Yi Huanyan hesitated for a few seconds and frowned. Ling Han's secretary, Xiao Dong. After saying this, without waiting for the two men in front of her to make any comments, she hurriedly explained. "It can't be Xiao Dong. She said before that she would go back to work at Pleasure Group. She has no reason to do this kind of thing." Gu Qi's voice came from the front seat, but he was not asking about Yi Huanyan. "Mr. Su, how's your uncle's business overseas?" Su Nianhua was slightly stunned. CL Pharmaceutical Group. It's not very big, but it's also a medium-sized listed company. How good is your uncle at keeping his privacy? Very strict. Su Nianhua's face suddenly sank. Gu Qi did not continue to ask, but Su Nianhua and Yi Huanyan had already realized something. How could Hong Rizhang, a small local tyrant of Lanjiang City, have the ability to find out the personal information of the chairman of a medium-sized listed company overseas? Chapter 548. The question of how Hong Rizhang found out about Yi Huanyan's background was left to Gu Qi to investigate in secret. His people had been watching Hong Rizhang for a while, and now the task was only extended. Gu Min returned to China yesterday. When she came back, She wanted to let her use her ability to pick locks and steal something, but when Siyuan came in handy, so she didn't bother her anymore. Flying back and forth was torturous, so Yi Huanyan decided to let her stay in the Gu mansion for the spring festival. There were a lot of people, so she could help the old and young. After getting the contract, everything was left to Ling Han. He had the final say on how to deal with his ambitious uncle and cousin. Yi Huanyan didn't have the mood to care. Later, Ji Xiaoye and Ling Zhan were discharged from the hospital on the same day, so the whole family was so busy. When they were finally done, Ling Li tore a page from the calendar on the wall of the Gu mansion. He suddenly realized that it was already the 20th of December. It was almost New Year's Eve, but they hadn't cleaned up, let alone buy New Year's goods. The Gu family was definitely going to spend New Year's here this year, and Ling Dongyu's family was also coming back. The second young mistress of Shi Yuan was old and wanted to return to Shi Yuan for a long time. So this New Year's was destined to be very lively. It's already the 20th of December. Who's going to buy New Year's goods and spring festival couplets? At night, the whole family gathered in the dining room to eat hot pot. When Wanyi mentioned this, everyone looked at each other. No one wanted to take this job. An Yen. Starting with her son, Wanyi glanced at Gu Xinian. Gu Xinian was picking food for his precious wife, who was trying to stop the fight. Hearing this, his expression didn't change. I still have some things to do in America. I have to go back tomorrow. It'll be good if I can make it back on New Year's Eve. Then, what about Yen Yen? Wanyi turned to look at her daughter, who was sitting beside Ji Xiaoye. My movie is still in the promotional period. We still have to catch up with the Lunar New Year slot. This is the last wave of publicity. If we can't keep up, the box office won't meet our expectations. The team will be disappointed. After throwing out such an excuse, Yi Huanyan glanced at the table with a smile. I'm treating everyone to a movie on the first day of the new year. I've booked the entire theater. Even Yi Huanyan herself hadn't watched Remaining Life in its entirety in the cinema since its release. She wanted to wait for the whole family to see it together. Wanyi glanced at her indifferently and then turned to look at her son-in-law. What about you? This is your family's old house. Don't tell me you have something to do? He does have something to do. Ling Han didn't refuse, but Yi Huanyan defended him. Pleasure just came back. He has a lot of things to do. It's not easy to sit here and have a meal with us. He really doesn't have time for this. Find someone else? Wanyi angrily put down her chopsticks and glanced at the people at the table. Her eyes were burning. The people at this table were pregnant, had something to do in America, were promoting the movie, were reopening their companies, were coming back from gastroenteritis surgery, and were not even as tall as the table. Fu Yingxiang was the only guest left. She was neither a member of the Ling family nor a member of the Gu family, so it wasn't good to bother her. Therefore, there were only two reckless girls left. When Wanyi's gaze landed on the two maidservants, the two maidservants were still eating with their heads lowered. It was as if they had not participated in the discussion. From the first time they met, Ling Li had a great interest in Gu Min. After 2 days of interaction, they found that they had similar temperaments. Every day, they would go out for morning exercises like they were little sisters who had been together for more than 10 years. From time to time, they would go to the dojo to practice. Gu Min, you seem to have a lot of free time recently? Wanyi's voice had a hint of warning. Gu Min looked up and was stunned. I'm not free. I help young master buy the things that young madam wants to eat every day. I went to buy these strawberries this afternoon. Someone at the table snorted, followed by Ji Xiaoye's dissatisfied questioning. Didn't you say that you were the one who bought all those strawberries? Who told you to order people around blindly? Wanyi coughed dryly and her eyes fell on Ling Li. Then what about you? Hey, you can't order your own people around, but you want to order me around? Hearing this tone, Ling Li's temper flared up. He glared at Wanyi without holding back. I say, Auntie, you really don't hold back. Wanyi had lived for more than half of her life. When she was young, she had a fiery temper and no one dared to provoke her. Now that she was older, her social status and family status were the same. What she said was even more irrefutable. On the other hand, it was useless to get involved with the Ling family. Yi Huanyan hurriedly gave Ling Li and Gu Min a look. Ling Li didn't intend to respond at first, but from the corner of his eye, he glanced at Yi Huanyan's turquoise earring and suddenly had an idea. It's not that I can't do it. It's just that I've been busy revising the design drafts recently. Chris asked me 2,000 years ago if I was done revising. I said that I would give it to her in 2 days. Wan Yi gritted her teeth. What, do you want me to help you tell Chris to postpone the submission of the paper? No. Ling Li raised his eyebrows. I never go back on my promises. If I say that I will hand it in 2 days, then I will hand it in 2 days. What he meant was that either you run errands, or you help me revise the design drafts. Originally, Yi Huanyan showed many of Ling Li's design drafts to Wan Yi. In Wan Yi's opinion, this girl's foundation wasn't good, but her design was very clever. Therefore, it wasn't impossible to have her as a teacher. She just wanted to take in a female disciple. She was waiting for this girl to lower her head, then she would go with the flow. She didn't expect that this girl didn't have the ability, but she was very stubborn. Ever since she was humiliated in the hospital, she didn't mention the design drafts in front of her. This was good. Now she was using it as a deal. You want me to help you revise the design drafts? Wan Yi held back her anger and stared at Ling Li. Her husband, Gu Ming, was holding a small wine glass and drinking by himself. He didn't stop this small farce in front of him. He looked at Ling Li and smiled very lovingly. For so many years, he rarely saw Wan Yi argue with the younger generation. After all, she didn't have a mouth for nothing. Very few people could beat her. This little girl was very interesting. Ling Li's face was full of slyness. Running errands to buy New Year goods, pasting spring couplets, and revising design drafts can't be done at the same time. If I do one, someone will do the other for me, right? Wan Yi was very persistent about the spring festival, so Ling Li stepped on the point. Design drafts, right? Wan Yi snorted and warned. As long as you're not afraid that your design drafts will be too eye-catching and cause trouble, I dare to revise them for you. If you dare to revise them, of course I'm not afraid of being eye-catching. Ling Li's sentence caused who knew how much trouble later on. Young and frivolous, she always felt that as long as it wasn't right in front of her, it wasn't a problem. Just like that, the matter of the New Year goods was settled. It was only after the discussion and the transaction was completed that Gu Min, who was standing at the side, looked up with a confused expression. Are you talking about the New Year goods that no one is buying? I can buy it when I run errands for the young master. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.